bespoke radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
All right, Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses. How you doing, everybody? It's Monday. Happy Hallow's Eve. That's right. Today's Monday, October 30th. 303 days into the new year. Just 62 days left. We are live from a bunker somewhere in downtown Burbank, California, and I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States, hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black for KJCR, the Game Changer Network, and KGRA, the planet. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking, everybody? How you doing? It's Monday. Oh, man, what a show we have lined up for tonight, because we have a very special guest. Dave Schrader is here. Darkness Dave Schrader. Yep, he's here to scare the crap out of us. He's got a money-back guarantee, by the way. You can send your email to darknessdave at gmail.com. There's probably a Darkness Dave out there at gmail.com. Tomorrow night is Halloween, and our guest tomorrow night is Randy Williams, and he's got a new book out, and so we're going to do some Jack the Ripper action. That's right, with it's a new book about Sherlock Holmes and Jack the Ripper. Going to do that tomorrow night. It's going to be amazing. Wednesday night, live from the UK, we have Hugh Newman back with us, and he's got a new book out, my favorite subject, Stone Circles, megalithic stone circles. So we're going to do that on Wednesday. I have the book here. I have finished it, by the way. And it is it's a great book, but it's more like it's like an encyclopedia. It's got stone circles in there that I've never heard of. And the stories behind them, and the ages and all of the scientific stuff. So it's a very, very cool book. It's called Stone Circles. That's what we will do on Wednesday. Thursday night, another Fader night with John Rappaport and his No More Fake Newsroom Live. Call-in numbers are 323-825-5045 or 323-275-9695. Now, you can follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Twitter is easy, and it's always up. As I said that, I'm clicking on it now. There you go. Okay, Twitter is up. The chat rooms are up. You can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Everything's Fade to Black, J Church Radio. You know what to do. Just go over to the website, and the website just looks absolutely amazing. We did a bunch of facelifts over the weekend. We've been working on the website for the last couple of weeks, and I think we've got it pretty sussed out and situated. And then we turned our sights on the bunker and had to, I wish you could see the view. You know what? I'm going to post this. Look, everybody watching me on the bunker cam, this is the view as I look over, right? This is the view in one direction, you know, boom, and then boom, right? And then boom. Boom. You know, I'll even go this far. Okay. Boom. I'm going to post all those pictures. I mean, the bunker is just the bomb, man. I just sit in here and I just look around, and it's just so cool. So anyway, yeah, I'm just taking pictures. I'll post all those up. And so eliminated mice in the studio, man. I had mice in my studio. I had 6 of them. And we had to get rid of the mice, man. So now I'm down to 2 mice, and each one controls 3 computers. Just hit a little button on the side, 1, 2, 3. Which one do you want? Boom, done. I have no more mice. I just got a nice clean desk. Oh, man, no cables. Oh, man. What an improvement. And there you go. And my new Tascam headphones. Oh, life is grand. All right, where am I? Look at the clock here. Ah, man, I got Dave Schrader coming in. All right, let's get some stuff out of the way. Let's do this really quickly. Any questions or comments during the show? Hashtag. I used to have a hashtag in high school back in the 80s. Yeah, I had a hashtag. Hashtag F2B on Twitter. Any questions? F2BQ on Twitter. Hashtag F2BQ. You can also email throughout the show, Jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. I wonder how quickly you guys are going to get hashtag hashbag up in Twitter. That's our new hashtag. It should be hashtag hashbag. Hashbag. Sometimes I make myself laugh. Okay. Oh, look at John. He's just took a picture of the bunker cam of me taking a picture of myself. That's pretty sick. That's pretty cool. All right. This Wednesday, breaking news. This Wednesday, November 1st, we will announce our next late night talk podcast host contest, of which we don't really have a name for, but that's close enough. The next late night talk podcast host contest, complete with rules and how to enter. We're not going to do that tonight. We're doing the announcement on Wednesday. There's reasons why we have to do it on Wednesday. All right, so not tonight, but Wednesday, November 1st. So tune in for that. We did the sneak preview. We got all of the banners out, and Tascam helped promote this. And this is courtesy of your friends over at Tascam Pro. So that's about to bust out. We will do that on Wednesday, so please tune in. And I want to remind everybody that Unity Workshops is now working on their first series of podcasts on portals. Okay, they need your help, producers and writers. Just go over to, it's very simple, the unityproject.org. Rita's going to get the links to that up here in Twitter in just a second. You can also write John at modernmasters.org or Rita at jimmychurchradio.com. Very simple. We want testimonials. We want video. We want audio. We want written stuff. We want research. This is a community project. We want you. All right, a couple of things. We announced this last week. First off, Contact in the Desert has a new home. It's the Renaissance Hotel, right? It's so Contact in the Desert is now in Palm Springs, not in Joshua Tree. It's right down the road. That's why it's called Contact in the Desert. And so it's in Palm Springs. And everything that you need, you can just go to contactinthedesert.com. The announcements are now up and going. We'll get the links up in Twitter here and send you over there. But it's a larger facility. It's fully air-conditioned, lots of restaurants and things to do, and a spa and a nice open night sky that will take your breath away. Okay, so there you go. Also, our next event will be the Conscious Life Expo, February 9th through the 12th, 2018, at the LAX Hilton. We do this event every single year. Tickets and info are over at consciouslifeexpo.com. The really cool news, Friday night, the kickoff for the event, I'll be hosting the Ancient Aliens panel, prime time, Friday night in the main Plaza Ballroom. It's going to be great. So I look forward to seeing all of you Fadernauts there. That room holds about 1,000, somewhere in that neighborhood, 1,000, 1,500 to capacity. It's a large room. There's live streams and there's other things too as well. But that kicks off February 9th through the 12th. announcing it now because we're, in a couple of days, we're in November, and we are just a couple of months away from this event. So tickets and info over at ConsciousLifeExpo.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. Over 740 archive shows, $2 a month. Click on the podcast banner over at jimmychurchradio.com. You can also become a Fader Not. Just go to our membership section on the site where you get the Bunker Cam. Hello, everybody watching me now in the Bunker Cam. You get commercial-free downloadable archives, everything else that you need, plus autographed T-shirts, hats, that kind of stuff. Okay, so become a member over in our membership area. Don't forget to check out all of our sponsors. Life Change Tea, GetTheTea.com, Rivermoon Coffee, New Pharma, Ancient Life Oil, Sacred Skulls, and Numana Food Storage, and, of course, Bearing Optics. I got email today from one of the Fader Knots, who was also a guest on the show, by the way, that just got their Bearing Optics night vision. They got the Gen 3. Very cool to have that email exchange today. Also, with Numana, we're giving away T-shirts with every order over $100 from Numana. We have been doing quite a bit of business we've just been with Numana as a sponsor now for about 2 weeks, and I sent out a ton of autographed shirts today. Very cool to see that happen. So thank you for your support, and you do that with all of our sponsors: Life Change Tea, Rivermoon Coffee, and New Pharma. All three are going to be at and help sponsor the Conscious Life Expo. So you can come out and meet Ronnie McMullen. You can meet Chip Paul. You can meet Juanita and Jeff from Rivermoon Coffee. They're all going to be there. All right, so come on out. It's going to be a great, great event, and it's also a really cool social gathering where we can all get together. Okay? All right. Happy birthday. Let's get the show cracking. Happy birthday to today, one of my favorites. I just got to do this. Nia Long. Today she's 47. And Nia's great. She's great in everything she's done, but it's still one of her first is still one of her best because she played Debbie in Friday. Yeah. I got a few quotes almost busted out. Bush frontman Gavin Rossdale today is 52. Henry Winkler, the Fonz, today, can you believe it, is 72. On this day in history, OTD, 1938, a 23-year-old Orson Welles causes a nationwide panic with his broadcast of The War of the Worlds, the realistic radio drama of a Martian invasion of planet Earth. Can you believe it? 1938. Wow, he was only 23. Unbelievable. Fader fact. This is a Fader fact. Now this, you can vet this, you can, or you can just listen to me and try to remember this. Nobody won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1914, 15, 16, 18, 23, 24, 28, 32, 1939 through 1943, 1948, 1955, 56, 66, 67, and 1972. Why? Well, sure, you got to ask why, right? The Nobel Committee didn't find anybody worthy. That's right. Seriously. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, like 18 times. No Nobel Prize winners. Easy enough to figure out from 39 to 43, though, right? Tonight, very special guest, Darkness, Dave Schrader is here. And before we say host to host or ghost to ghost or coast to coast, we're not going to do that. Even though you think I just did, I'm reminding you that we are not. No, we're not going to do that. We wouldn't do that. That's so self-serving and egotistical to call this host to host or ghost to ghost or coast to coast. I'm not going to do it. I'm just not going to go there. But he is the guy that you want at your camp out. You guys go camping with the kids. He's the guy from the campsite next door that comes over and scares the crap out of everybody. And that's what we're going to do tonight because it is Hallows Eve. All right. Okay. Now, let me hit this River Moon coffee. Look in the everybody look on the bunker cam. Take a picture of that. That's right. That's my River Moon coffee sleeve. Is that cool? Look at that. Can you read it? Can you read it? Can you read it? How cool is that? That's official. That's official. So you know you've arrived, right? I posted up in Twitter right before the show, and it's one of those things, man. I let my emotions get a hold of me. It got a hold of me. So yeah, I tweeted out, man, I'm done with Joe Rogan. Right? I'm just done with him, and it's I've lost respect, and it's a tough thing for me to say because I looked up to Joe for so many years, enjoyed his programming, and Rita will tell you, countless nights over the last probably 5-7 years of listening to Rogan, every single night. And I just enjoyed it. Didn't matter who the guest was. And last week he had Tom DeLonge on. And I'm going to get to some other past shows and reasons for this, but and it's like this, and I mean this in the kindest of ways. So I just want you to listen to me. That Rogan used to be a kid that questioned everything. And he would ask those questions, and he would bring on these guests, and he was truly interested in all things, whether it was lost history or the origins of man or DNA or Egypt or lost civilizations and our education system and UFOs and ghosts and the paranormal and the New World Order and government conspiracies and all of that. So the Illuminati. Now, it's okay to disagree with that or to change your mind or to figure stuff out. That's what life is about. But what I used to enjoy was listening to Joe ask the questions that were making his brain and his mind tick. It was great. You felt like, you were there. And 3 hours, man, of just just awesomeness. And he had that quest for truth, trying to satisfy himself. But he's gone from that to, he's kind of dickish, and I'm not digging it anymore. He has lost respect for himself and his guests and his producer. And anybody that's on that show, anybody that's working with him, because, it's a team effort. And it's gone that way. And I don't understand why. And with DeLonge, okay, now, and I'm not defending Tom. Tom is Tom. Tom has got a lot of stuff out there to discuss with the public. And he's got things that he's got to get worked out with everybody. And I get that. He's got a mountain in front of him, but that's way beside the point. When I have a guest on this show, they are a guest. They're a guest, and I treat them with respect, the same as if they were in my very own home. That's what you do. You show your guests respect. If you are going to invite somebody on the show, you're not inviting them, look, dude, man, I'm going to invite you on. I'm just going to slap you around. You wouldn't have any guests, would you? Right? So by inviting somebody to be on the show, they're expecting a good time. It can be intense. It can be strong. You can disagree. You can debate. You can do all of that, but you do that with respect. Do that with respect. You don't disrespect somebody. So with Tom, and I've seen this with other guests on the show, but with Tom, Joe was a predator. And you just don't do that as a host. I was so uncomfortable in watching the interview. Now, I would love for Joe to take Tom to task and to ask those questions. I certainly have. But you're not there. You know, Rogan smelled blood. He smelled blood. And this thing took over Rogan. And it was uncomfortable to watch. Rogan, it was like he was trolling him. He was marching around him and kicking him. You know, just a predator, like a gangster. Like, man, it was just gnarly. You don't do that with a guest. Everything that was done on that show could have been done with respect. Rogan, looking at his producer, raising one eyebrow, laughing, you know, just talking over Tom, talking down to Tom. You don't do that with a guest. You just don't do it. And the old Rogan wouldn't have done that, right? But the jokes, the laughing, you know, he relished in it. And looking over at your producer like that in front of Tom, fronting him off, it's a lack of respect. That is not what a host does. And I am not wrong here. So it messed with my emotions. It messed with me. You know, I do the exact opposite on the show. The exact opposite. You know, I have no problem challenging anybody, man. You remember, I'll say this really quick. I had Jeffrey Meldrum on, Idaho State University, Bigfoot. And I had said to him at the very front of the show, I said, hey, man, I'm on the fence about Bigfoot. So I need you tonight to convince me. And he laughed about it. And we had one of the most engaging, fun conversations I've ever had on this show. And it's okay. There's a way to handle it and to do it. Rogan, no. And I remember a couple of years ago when Rogan commented on the trolls on YouTube, on his YouTube page, and he would sit and read these trolls and comments, and I just have to stop doing it, you know. And I'm thinking about something. He's doing exactly what he complains about. Funny guy, man. The election show that they did at the Laugh Factory with Bill Burr, man, that was classic comedy. Rogan can really, really be a funny guy. And when he talks about his kids and his cats and his things and his life, it's all good, but it's fake. You know, the guy that was doing this thing with Tom was wrong. And he did the same thing with Giorgio Tsoukalos. Did the exact same thing with Giorgio. And you don't do that with Giorgio's just a nice guy. Why do that? Why question Giorgio? Well, you got a show called Ancient Aliens? You don't know anything about UFOs? No, I don't study UFOs. You just don't do that. So I watched the DeLong interview. I had to do it. I wanted to see what Tom had to say. I wanted to collect information. You know, I wanted to do that. And it was just uncomfortable. The entire thing. It was nearly unwatchable. And it wasn't unwatchable because of DeLong. DeLong had his own issues, but he's the guest on the show. It was uncomfortable because of Rogan and him being a predator, him being a great white shark that smelled blood. And he's ready to go bite the seal. It was nuts. Nuts. When they try to talk about To the Stars, it's just questioning, slapping, quite slap. You know, alien technology. What did you see? What did you touch? What did you see? What, you know, let me guess, man. You can't tell me who they are. That joke got so old so quick. Raising his eyebrow, looking at his producer. Oh, man. I got to take a break, man. I got to take a break on Rogan. There was a time when I reached out, wanted him on Fade to Black. Ain't going to happen. No, it's just not going to happen. We're too small of a show. I understand that. He would have to throw us a bone to come on this show. But we have the same audience, a large crossover audience. We're asking the same questions. We have many friends between us. It would be a really cool show to have him on. You know what? I'm not even interested. And it's sad. You know, sometimes, and I had said this, I was at, Rita and I were out with some friends a couple of weeks ago, and this subject came up. What happens when you meet somebody, some star, somebody that you respected and looked up to, and then you just find out, you know, that they ain't who you thought they was? You know, what happens? You don't get that switch turned back on. It just doesn't come back. You move on. You move on. You know, and that's where I'm at with this. It's where I am at, and it breaks my heart. Breaks my heart. I think the true colors were shown. I don't know what got him to this point, but it was painful to watch. It was painful to watch. And the thing is, with Tom DeLonge, he's a pop punk guitar player. He's a great singer. He's a rock star. He comes from a different mindset. You know, Joe Rogan is smart. Man, uber smart. Smart guy. Brain always moving. Always moving. And with a guy like Joe up against somebody with the personality that Tom has or Giorgio or other guys, you know, just people like that with that kind of personality, and you want to turn on the heat, Joe's no match for anybody. He can slap anybody around. He's very, very, very smart. And you need to realize that as a show host. You know, you just don't do it. It's like something was triggered. Like I said, man, it was like he smelled blood, and then he couldn't stop. All right, so enough of that. I just wanted to let everybody know why I did the tweet and what led up to that. You know, I watched that interview twice. Watched it twice. Sad. I got to let him go. I got to let him go for a couple of years. I'll come back in a couple of years. I'll come back. But right now, I just need to chill. And with that, let's get out of here because it's Darkness Dave Schrader on Fade to Black. Because it's Hallow's Eve, and, you know, he's the most booked guy in America on Halloween. Couldn't get him on the show for tomorrow. So there you go. But we got him tonight. We're going to sit around that campfire and tell some stories tonight. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Email is jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. I'll be back with Darkness Dave Schrader. Stay with us.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Yes, Rivermoon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy.
So are you tired of being tired? Well, then it's time to get the tea. Hey, it's Lisa here to tell you about this all-natural, all-organic tea I've been drinking that has had great results for over 20 years. It's called Life Change Tea, and it's specially formulated to help detoxify and cleanse your kidneys, liver, colon, and blood all at once. The colon is one of the most ignored organs in the human body. The faster that waste is eliminated from the body, the less time that waste sits in our intestines, spreading toxins to our bloodstream. This tea helps cleanse chemicals caused by outside intruders from our entire digestive system. And get this, weight loss can be a side effect. And with continued use of the tea, you can experience clearer, healthier, younger-looking skin, increased energy, and a happier outlook on life. So if you're tired of being tired, get the Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. And like me, you'll be glad you did.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, The Planet.
Win big with KGRA this summer. Tickets and hotel accommodations to the biggest conferences, autographed books and DVDs, chances to win all-inclusive conference cruises, and private dinners with your favorite KGRA hosts. Click the contest tab at kgraradio.com for your chance to win big this summer. Your contact for the best alternative talk radio on the planet. kgraradio.com.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Happy Hallows Eve, everybody. Tomorrow night's Halloween. We had to get the most booked man of October on the show tonight. Couldn't do it tomorrow night. He's too busy. And that is Darkness Dave Schrader. That's right. He's the host of the long-running paranormal talk radio show, Darkness Radio. Now heads up Beyond the Darkness, part of the Jericho Network on Podcast One. That's right, and he's also a regular fill-in host with yours truly over on Coast to Coast AM. He has lived a life immersed in the paranormal, from ghostly visitations to growing up in a haunted house, Bigfoot sightings, and, of course, UFO encounters. And this is what he does all the time. He just seems to be at the right place, right? At the right time. His overwhelming fear of death keeps him constantly seeking answers and trying to understand his place in the universe and in the afterlife. Tonight, on Halloween Eve, Hallows Eve, Dave is going to tell us the best of his Frightmare creature tales. Yes, he is the guy you don't want telling stories around the campfire. Or maybe you do, right? Maybe he is the perfect choice. Well, tonight, Dave promised he's going to bring his A game with a money-back guarantee. And I would like to welcome back to Fade to Black, the one and only Darkness Dave Schrader. Dave, good evening, my friend. How are you?
Always great to be here, Jimmy. Thanks for having me on the show.
Man, you know, I said earlier at the beginning of the show, I said, I'm not going to do host to host. I'm not going to say it tonight. I'm not going to say ghost to ghost. I'm not going to say coast to coast. We're not going to do that, are we, Dave?
From one host to another host, you're right. We're not going to.
We're just not going to do it.
That's my promise.
I just really enjoy having you on the show and the conversations. And one of the things that you do really well, not only on Darkness, but over at Coast. We depend on you for the, Darkness, right? You do the investigations. You're out there. You're ghost hunting. You're looking for Bigfoot. You're questioning what happens, after our death, and you're looking into all of these things constantly. And you're the one that we turn to for all of that. But I got to ask you, and I don't think I ever have, what started this twisted life of yours? Did something really bad happen as a child? I mean, what's the story?
It's kind of the opposite. Like we talked on I think one of the first times I was on, I've just been immersed in it. It's been around me my whole life, from having ghostly encounters with my grandmother to having a Bigfoot encounter in Foley, Alabama when I was about 11 or 12, UFO sightings in 2006, and just immersing myself in this. I've become open and kind of a sponge to it. It's attracted to me. I'm not always out seeking it. I get things that happen around me. As a matter of fact, if we want to start off with some creepy stories, and we'll get into some of the frightmare creatures, I've had for probably about 4 or 5 years what I believe is some kind of entity living in my closet. Okay. And it's real easy, I know, for listeners out there to kind of roll their eyes, probably you as well, saying, wait a minute, what?
Right.
Right. But here's the deal. Again, I'm a skeptical believer, Jimmy. I've had experiences, but I also question everything ad nauseum. I try to break it down. And was I too tired? Was I this? Was I that? Well, I noticed it when my son, my kids, they go away for the summer to be with their mother, and I'm home alone a lot. And I had a friend over, and we were watching a movie when we suddenly heard footsteps stomping around upstairs. And I looked at her, and she looked at me. And we just kind of shook it off and went back to watching the movie. And from our vantage point on the couch, you could see where the stairs come down from the downstairs and empty out into the dining room. And this small, shadowy, childlike figure ran right down those stairs and out into my dining room. And we both stopped and turned and looked at each other. And I go, did you just see that? She goes, yeah. It was a kid-sized shadow just ran into your living or into your dining room.
So when that happens...
Right.
What do I mean, that's that.
I do what any self-respecting man in my position would do. I said, do you want to go out and check that for me?
Yeah,
honey?
Exactly. When you get right, because when you get the real confirmation like that, it's easy to back off and go, okay, it's just me. I'm nuts. I've got a floaty in my eye. Whatever it is that you're going to make, you're going to rationalize it and try to keep yourself sane. But when you have a witness. Now, does that elevate the level of scary?
Again, it's more of a shock and awe kind of experience. I wasn't afraid. She wasn't afraid. It was just more of, holy gosh, did we just see what we thought we saw? And we both saw it simultaneously. So it wasn't just a trick of the eyes. Now, I'm one of those to question. I mean, I'm already in a dark room watching a TV, and we're watching some. Probably paranormal or a horror movie, something, and you've got lights flickering and things changing. So you will get some of that effect that your eyes can be tricked. But both of us heard the footsteps. Both of us turned and looked as this thing ran down the stairs and right out past us. Or not past us, but past our view. So that there was definitely something different than just flickering of lights and a floater in your eye that both of us happened to share at the same moment. So it was pretty exciting, and it was cool, and we just both sat there and kind of talked about it, and I went and looked, and of course there was nothing there.
Right. What is it about, one of my favorite things to do is have crazy dreams after, a really good scary movie, of, falling asleep listening to creepy pasta, right? Get a bunch of those strung together in a row, and going into dreamland, the upside down, going there. Why is it? Why do we enjoy that? Why do we like getting scared?
Listen, it's that basic raw nature in us. When something changes your paradigm, it shakes you alive, right? Fear reminds you that you're alive. It awakens different aspects of your personality, of your brain, of your senses, and it's exciting. As a matter of fact, they tell you, Jimmy, that if you really want to have a great first date, you should take your date to a scary movie or a theme park. Do things that are going to boost your adrenaline level and fear factor, because that binds you and bonds you together. So when dating, if you're looking for that perfect way to kind of get that first connection going, that when the chemicals start bubbling, man, that's a great time when you've got that fear and that kind of relying on each other mentality. It actually is, and again, this is science, Jimmy, not just a radio show host talking, but the fact is it's better for the beginnings of the relationship, better for bonding, better for sexual tension. So it's kind of a cool deal. I think we just live for that inherent rush to feel something outside of just our daily routine.
Both of my daughters, as a parent, it was interesting to watch them grow up, and they both did the exact same thing. They went from, maybe even simultaneously, they're watching the Animaniacs, or they're watching Dexter's Laboratory, right? The Powerpuff Girls, and they're doing all of that stuff at the age of 5, 4, 5, 6. But they also demanded from me scary movies that I thought were too scary for me as an adult.
Sure.
And for them, the scarier the better. The scarier the better. If they screamed, and they did it a lot, the better. And this was like this natural. This is just part of growing up. And I was watching, my daughters do this in a natural way. They really enjoyed getting the crap scared out of themselves. And they ask me to do it every single night. The scarier the movie, the better.
And see, in a lot of cases, people are so addicted to their technology that they become almost numb to things. I mean, you could tell that just by the scary nature of the world we live in and the news that circulates around us. It's scarier than any horror movie that we could watch. But I think when the kids break from that and they're with dad and they want to watch something scary, it's that moment. Again, it's a binding moment because they know they're safe. They know you're going to protect them and take care of them. And then they still get to have that thrill of, hey, it's kind of taboo. They probably shouldn't be watching this, right? Other kids their age don't get a chance to see these things. And they get that little thrill. Then they get the thrill of seeing things that are shaking their paradigm and comfort level of what they believe to be real or not real. And then they've got a dad who can talk to them about the paranormal and the supernatural and open their eyes to some of this while sheltering and protecting them. I just did a show. It was funny, 2 weeks ago, just as I'm about to go to record, my guest calls, sicker than a dog, cannot do the show. And I'm like, oh, no, I've got absolutely no time to book another guest. And my two daughters, who are 10 and 11, both looked at me and they said, well, why don't we do the show with you? We'll talk about the paranormal.
Oh, how cool is that?
So I sat down and I said, well, let's run this experiment. And I'll tell you what, Jimmy, I had this fun conversation with my two daughters, and we had a chance to just talk and be open with one another. And I've had such a great response from my audience that loved hearing their stories and hearing me interact with them and their theories on some of the points of death and ghosts and things were really amazing. And they were eye-opening because it's coming from a kid's perspective. And sometimes we forget that they're little people. We're here to protect them and watch over them. But they have their own brains and thought processes too, and they're not always impressed upon by what we believe. And it's fascinating when we shut up long enough to ask kids, what do you think this is? Why do you think this happens? That kind of, it gives you a really great insight into kind of a clearer mind that may not be as jaded or tainted as those of us that have been around a lot longer.
Did you have, who taught you how to tell a story? Because you do it really, really well. Did you have that crazy uncle, growing up? Did you have somebody that taught you the art of the story?
I think what I really enjoyed doing was watching my grandfather. He was in World War II. He was a paratrooper with the 82nd Airborne Division. He was just a great person overall. People loved him. And I would love to watch him tell a story because he would glaze over. It was like you were watching like a movie and they'd show Harrison Ford as he starts to talk about what happened to himself as young Indiana Jones. And you just see that kind of glazed over look and you knew his mind was back there. And that was the kind of response my grandfather would have. And I just loved watching the way he would tell stories. And then my mom had that gift. And then she begat it to me. And that's kind of been where we go. And when you're fascinated and you love this stuff, it's easy to be excited about it and telling the story. I like to milk every nuance of the stories because it's fascinating. And you never know which aspect of the story is going to resonate with you or with your listeners.
I used to, in Chicago, when I was growing up, at the very tender ages, kindergarten, through that period, Friday nights, they had creature features, right? And which I'm sure was syndicated across the country. I've heard everybody mention they had a local version of creature features. But the original Mummy, right? The original Mummy walking a quarter mile of I don't know, right? Literally walking around in slow motion that you could completely outrun terrified me. And fully enjoyed all of those original 1930s black and white Frankenstein and the Wolfman and all of those, really scared me. But
sure.
If I fast forward, two of the scariest movies for me to this day scare me are the original Nightmare on Elm Street. In fact, all of them were great, by the way.
Right.
And The Shining, which is another modern movie. It's in the 70s, but truly terrifying movies. Those are like my top two. For you, where do you go to? What's your go-to scary movie?
Well, Jimmy, I grew up in the Chicagoland area myself, so I remember that creepy surf guitar start of doom, doom, doom when they would go to the Channel 32 chilling theater or whatever they would call it that specific year. They used to kind of flip it around and have different titles for it. And then, of course, we got Son of Svengoolie that took over and began hosting the horror movies. But one of my favorite remembrances was my dad waking me up on Halloween at about 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And he said, get up. And there was school the next day. And he said, you're going to watch this. Well, let's go watch this movie together. And it was Night of the Living Dead, a midnight showing.
Wow.
And we went in and we turned on the TV and we turned off the lights. And I go, what is this? And he goes, you just got to watch it. And it was the only movie that ever scared him, he told me. And I watched that movie riveted. And it had commercials, and I was still freaked out by everything I was seeing.
Right.
And it was because it was this claustrophobic human element, and the enemy was the worst possible creature you could imagine. It was us. It was our neighbors, our friends, our brothers, our loved ones.
Right.
And it was scary as hell. So Night of the Living Dead has always been locked in my brain that way. And then I think the original Halloween, John Carpenter's Halloween, the very first one.
Yeah. Great ending. Yeah.
Right. And that was nothing like that had ever been out there before. And then, like you, Nightmare on Elm Street came along. And I remember the first time I watched it, my buddy and I had to huddle around a black and white TV to watch it because his parents were watching the color TV. And we rented the video, we plugged it in, and in black and white, that movie still scared the hell out of me.
I watched it at the theaters in Pasadena, first run when it came out. And I had a friend that I really had trouble sleeping for a while after that. It was just great. But I had a friend that worked at the mall, and he got me that summer a Freddy Krueger life-size cardboard cutout that was at the mall. It was a prop, right? And I put it in my bathroom against the back wall. Right. And so have guests over at that. Where's the bathroom? It's right over there. Right.
Oh, man, you're horrible.
Oh, it was awesome because
but at least they were in the right room to have it scared out of them.
Oh, man, it was guaranteed. All of us, right? We're like, right, here it goes. And the light switch is about to go on. And it just didn't matter. And that summer, we went back and watched that movie so many times, and I think it affected a generation. It really, really was that scary. It was original, and it's the other part of, and I know that we're going to talk about this a little bit later, we are all a little bit paranoid about a nightmare, a scary dream. Right? Is it real or is it not? And if you are in a really vivid dream, a really vivid nightmare, you don't know, right? That's a parallel world, a parallel dimension. It's in your brain. And so it's just as real as anything else. And we are all paranoid about that. What is real and what is not. And that's what Nightmare on Elm just had in spades. It really freaked us out.
What they did really well, too, that resonated with so many of us, a nightmare is bad enough, right? We can all agree. And then when you wake up, there's that sense of relief of, God, thank you, I'm out of that. Oh, holy God, that was horrible. And there's that relief. But the true nightmare is the nightmare within the nightmare, meaning that you are somewhat lucid and know you're in a nightmare, but you can't find your way out. You realize, oh my God, I'm dreaming. This is a nightmare. And then you think at that point you would have some kind of control, but you don't. The killer keeps coming. The volcano still erupts. The tornado touches down. You cannot escape that force. And that to me has always been the type of nightmare I find 100 times more terrifying because I'm aware of the fact that I'm locked in a nightmare and I don't know how to get out of it. And you can't talk your way out of it. You can't rationalize your way out of it. You just have to pray to somehow get awoken.
There's something natural that happens when that, because that is the case with every nightmare. It doesn't have an end. You don't outrun anybody. You are continuously being chased, or whatever it is. You're continuously going through the dark halls or the dark. You're not getting out of the house. You're not getting away. You just don't do it. It continues and continues and continues. That has something to do with us as humans, doesn't it? Because we all experience the same form of nightmare.
Well, and I just had Dr. Michael Lennox on Coast to Coast with me on Friday night, and it was about nightmares, and we took callers, and he was able to break down nightmares. And one thing that we started to learn is that nightmares are really actually a very cathartic thing for us as humans. There may be a lot of things that you and I do as parents and worries and concerns that consume us, but we have to push them away because we have to make a living, we have to make appearances, we have to make dinner, we have to do the laundry. And we push away these fears, and we push away these insecurities, and they're there nagging at us. So when you have these nightmares, a lot of times that's the way to purge these negative feelings and fears out of your system in a healthy way, so that you can continue to just live every day. And you started off. I've got a huge fear of death. I've had it since I was as little as I can remember, 4 or 5 years old. I remember lying there in bed, terrified to go to sleep, because what if I don't wake up? What if it's over? What if the light just goes out and there's nothing? And I remember having that, and I'll be 50 here on November 22nd, and I still have those fears.
I used to have this dream. It ended I know exactly when it ended. It ended about 7 years ago. I used to have this dream about trying to get down underground through dark into a room where I had a studio, and trying to get down there, to escape some bad stuff that is going on above ground. I'm trying to get to safety. And I had this dream forever. Now I have the bunker, right?
Right.
The dream's ended. I can't get that dream back. I used to love that dream. It was scary. I don't have it anymore. Isn't that weird?
Right. And well, it's because you partly realized it, and that took away some of the stigma and the fear from it, right?
Yes.
You've got the bunker, and you're in control. When you're in this dark, dank hole, this is your realm. This is where Jimmy Church thrives and lives. So you've become more than the nightmare.
Why do we fear death, though? Is it because we don't have necessarily the firm answers? Nobody's come back with videotape from the other side, right? So we don't.
Well, there's the basic aspect of we just don't want to not be here, right? There's a fear. That's a huge one. I just don't want to not be around. I want to see my kids. And as we get older, that fear is still anchored in me. And there are some people who don't have it at all. They don't have that. And I believe everyone should have a healthy respect for it. I don't believe fear should be the way you should lead your life. But listen, we've explored space, and we're continuing to do so. We've explored the oceans, and we continue to do so. We've explored our globe, and we continue to do so. But the one thing we can't fully get into and come back with reports, as you just stated, is the afterlife. Mm-hmm. We can live vicariously through those who say that they've had those life-altering experiences with a near-death situation. And it's great, especially when you can hear people that were doctors, neurosurgeons, atheists, people who went into this having no belief system whatsoever, right, and having something radically different change their lives. And they know for a fact that there is now something. Those are the stories that fascinate me so much, because it took somebody out of non-believing into a place where they are so comfortable with it that they don't fear death anymore, and that they know what's coming next.
And then we have this other part of it where we know that vampires can be scary. We know these different creatures out there, these mythological things. But now we dress up on Halloween like the things that make us scary, and we laugh, and we now make it's celebration. It's a ceremony now, where we have fun with it. It's a very strange thing, isn't it? I've always been fascinated with that. Vampires, there's nothing like a guaranteed hit in Hollywood, right? You either do a UFO movie, you do a movie on zombies, or you do a vampire flick, right? We enjoy that. We love but yet we have no problems putting vampire teeth on our 5-year-old son and making him look like, Eddie Munster.
Because those characters are power characters. They have something ethereal, something that goes beyond. And we like that. We covet that. We want that for ourselves. And we also have a healthy fear and respect. And I know you're probably up against a commercial, but one thing I'll mention to you is, I had a very fascinating, very real lucid dream once. And it made no sense other than this segment. I was going into like a coffee shop cafe. There was this old, beaten, hideously gruesome-looking man sitting at a table who insisted I sit with him. And I sat down. And it was so lucid, Jimmy, so clear. And we began to have a talk. And he started talking to me about what do I know about angels? And I gave him my basic knowledge of them. And he said, what do they look like? And I started to describe it. And he said, that's where you've got it wrong. And he goes, sitting before you is an angel. Sitting before you is one that has been here since the beginning of time. And I'm like, okay. And again, it's flying completely in the face of logic because he's hideous. He's beaten. He's scarred. He said, the vanity of the demons is what keeps them beautiful and light. We take the scars in battle to protect the people, to protect your soul. So we are the most beaten of the realm. The true angels are. That's why we put out jack-o'-lanterns on Halloween. That's why we put up scary decorations. It's not to scare the kids that are coming. The idea was, and intention was to scare away and be an affront to the real evil, because they didn't want to lay their eyes upon something this hideous. The demonic realm, the fallen angels, have this ego, this I'm better than this. So the whole idea was to repel them. That's why there are gargoyles on buildings, to repel evil, because they don't want to see it or set eyes on something horrible. That's
insane.
And that's what this was, this whole conversation with him. It was really remarkable.
Wow. And the thing, I hear that and I listen to that, and it almost makes too much sense. And I don't want to sound naive here, but it does. It makes too much sense.
I'm with you, and that's exactly how I felt when I woke up. I felt like I had a profound experience and conversation with an actual angel. And some people would say, Dave, no, obviously it was hideous. It was trying to fool you. It's one of the demonic realm.
Right.
But it made complete and utter sense, because if you do look up the historical significance of putting creepy faces on things and buildings, it was to scare away the darkness, because they did not want to see these things. They were personally offended by looking at these. So that's why you would post these beings or these creatures and these jack-o'-lanterns in places to fend off the evil. So it totally makes sense.
Yeah. One of the coolest, scariest things I always thought about was the gargoyles on the outside of a church. It's like, what that doesn't make any sense, right? It's like,
now you know.
Now I know. This is Fade to Black. Our guest tonight, Darkness, Dave Schrader. When we come back, we're going to start it. We're going to do Frightmare Creatures. It's all tonight, New Hallows Eve. We'll be right back.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station, Salt Lake City, Utah, Van Buren, Arkansas. Hello, Fadernauts. This is Jimmy Church, and I'm introducing New Pharma, a company whose products are based on science. Human function based on the endocannabinoid system, or ECS. New Pharma firmly believes in this science and their research indicates that support of the ECS provides the beneficial effects for a healthy lifestyle. New Pharma's science includes relief capsules for pain relief, sleep capsules, which are natural support for occasional sleeplessness. Foundation is support for your ECS, and Fit capsules support your active lifestyle. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2B for a 33% discount on all of their products. Or visit newpharma.com for all of the knowledge on the science. That's GNUpharma.com. Go Beckley Tappy.
Hello, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA digital broadcast station.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to jimmychurchradio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And this is Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers. We're of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And I'm Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
And you're listening to Jimmy Church.
The Revolution.
Ancient Life Oil. Life-changing. The real oil. CBD is truly ancient life oil from the source. This oil has no psychoactive effect and is also legal in all 50 states. When you're healthy, you're happy. The truth about this wonderful plant is that it wants to give back to mankind life, longevity, and happiness. Ancient Life Oil are golden grade, all organic, non-GMO, and infused with high-quality liquid coconut oil. It's simple. Just go to ancientlifeoil.com today. That's ancientlifeoil.com. The best, purest, organic, and non-GMO CBD in the world. Go Beckley Tappy. The statements made regarding these products have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Please consult your healthcare professional about potential interactions or other possible complications before using any product.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black, across the globe on the Game Changer Radio Network and the one and only KGRA Radio, The Planet.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight on this Hallow's Eve, Darkness, Dave Schrader. And what we're going to do, hold on, Dave. I got to pot you up, brother.
How dare you not have me potted up from the beginning? Don't you know who I think I am, Jimmy Church?
You know, it's kind of like this. I sound like I'm stuttering. I don't think I've ever told this story, and I'm not going to tell the whole story. But we, in the 80s, right around, it was that summer of Nightmare on Elm Street. And what was the other, not Halloween, Friday the 13th, right? So all of that stuff is kicking off. And guess where we camped? It was like 8 of us. Crystal Lake.
Crystal Lake, Illinois?
No, I used to live there. Crystal Lake from Friday the 13th.
Nice.
Okay, now that's right here. You can go. It's between, it's just past Pasadena and Monrovia. It's up in the mountains right there. It's a real place, right? So we go up. They have a campground, and then right next to it is the lake and the summer camp, right? All that stuff. So we went off walking at about midnight, telling campfire stories. And we take off, and we're going to go find Crystal Lake. And we walked into the fog. And I'm not kidding. I'm not joking about this. One of the scariest things I've ever done in my life. Got lost, couldn't get back to the campground. And I hope some of my friends that were there that night are listening right now. They know exactly what I'm talking about. And when I finally got back, it was like 3 o'clock in the morning. And we didn't walk far. In the morning, we walked, and I walked to the lake, and I'm looking at the campground. I'm like, dude, I can see it.
I have no idea. It took me 3 hours to get back. 100 yards, 200 yards. Anyway, we did that, Crystal Lake, and we're talking about, Friday the 13th, and we're getting lost in the fog. We come back. One of the most terrifying things. There's something about campfires, camping and telling the classic ghost story. So if you are the guy next door, the campsite next door, and you come over and you're looking at us and you decide to sit down and scare the crap out of us, what's the first, where are you going first in your arsenal of tales?
Oh boy, where do you go? I mean, when I talk about these creatures, nightmare kind of creatures that we talk about and are fascinated by, I love to look at the genesis of where a lot of these stories come from and how do we go in and absolutely homogenize some of these tales. And it's funny to look at something along these lines. Like, all right, as you talk about creepy things at night, the first thing that does not pop to mind is the tooth fairy. You wouldn't think this is a creature or a being that you would have to be fearful of. Right? You leave your tooth underneath your pillow. The beautiful tooth fairy comes. She goes under your pillow, takes it and replaces it with some kind of shiny form of money, right? There's nickels, dimes, quarters, dollars, $5, depending on just how wealthy your tooth fairy is. But there's this great little exchange. But when you look into the real historic relevance of this and where would this even come from, it's a lot creepier, Jimmy. I mean, it's really kind of freaky. The whole idea with the tooth fairy, when you lost your first tooth or you had your first haircut, you were supposed to destroy, keep it, burn it, get rid of it because you didn't want the local village witch getting a hold of your hair. Your first clippings are the most powerful, or your first tooth, because those were things that they could use to control you and possess you. So you were supposed to take care of these. Your parents would take them to hide them and protect you from them. That's why we're so clingy when it comes to those first haircuts and first teeth that come out is because it had more of a rooting in superstition and fear than it did. And the tooth fairy was nothing like we expected. It wasn't this beautiful angelic creature. It was more of this vampiric like being that would want to steal your teeth or your hair clippings in order to take control of you and take this. And this was an actual fear that was long believed all the way up until, in some of the countries, all the way up until the late 1800s. And they wouldn't talk about certain aspects of this because of that fear. So they kind of started to homogenize these stories and clean them up, clear them up. As we know, a lot of stories that we come across are actually cautionary tales to control children. If you tell them about the big bad wolf in the woods, there is no big bad wolf in those woods, but I don't want my kids wandering off into the woods where they could fall or trip or, get hurt and they're far away from us. So there would always be these creepy stories that would be told and passed down. And they would tell you how the woods were haunted. And specifically, the deeper into the woods you went, the creepier it got. And that's because that's where a lot of the criminals would hang out, because they wanted to keep people from trying to find them or chase them into the woods so they could do their deal, their bidding, and then hide in the woods beyond the part where everybody was comfortable to go into it. So there's a lot of these stories where we see the actual spark of them is something nefarious in order to protect or to keep us from, being hurt or putting ourselves in harm's way.
What did you do with your teeth then in the 1600s? Did you give them to your parents?
Well, the parents, right, they would collect them and they would either crush them down into powder so that they couldn't be, or they would burn them, or they would bury them in the yard under a full moon. So as long as the parents were able to take control, but it just kind of varies in the different cultures and how they looked at it. But that was your first one. I mean, then you've got, everybody knows Santa Claus, right? And he's a jolly old white elf who's a great guy, comes around once a year to deliver presents and take care of the people that have been good and reward them. But what a lot of people don't remember, when this story originated, there was a darker aspect to this. Santa had kind of an enforcer. You could look at Santa as kind of the Tony Soprano of the supernatural beings world. He would send Krampus out, or the Belsnickel, and they would go out and they would grab children that were naughty. and they would beat them with switches and throw them in their bags. And depending on the severity of how naughty these children were, some would be taken away and never seen again. Some would be eaten. So Krampus and Belsnickel and some of these characters were the front runners, so that when Santa came to deliver presents, he didn't have to worry about if you've been naughty or nice. If you were still alive, you got a present because they'd already judged you.
I never liked Santa anyway.
Come on, he's a good guy,
See,
you know. And he got rid of Krampus. He let him go. He realized things that's not good PR for the whole motion machine, right?
Right.
So he let go of that, and instead he just has slave labor with elves.
Right.
So there's one trade for another, I guess.
Well, I respect Santa now and for the joy that he's brought my children, right?
Right.
But man, growing up, there was something I just didn't trust about that guy. That was me as a kid. It was really bizarre. I just had something. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it was, but it
was the idea that he could get in, that he was watching you while you were sleeping, and he knew when you were good or bad. It was kind of a stalkery, creepy kind of visualization, right? It was. They kind of took the pressure off of Jesus, and be careful, what would Jesus do? And they put it on Santa Claus for a good portion of the year. So you were kind of built into this fear, and Santa was often used as fear, because if you didn't do what you were supposed to do, you were going to get a lump of coal.
Now, why is it that we seem to be able to manifest not only creatures, monsters, these things from these dark places with our minds, and then when the hive mind kicks in, as this fear spreads and it's done with thought, that they seem to become, they manifest themselves, they become real, and I'm not sure where that is coming from.
Well, I'll tell you what. That's a great question. Why don't we hold that off for a little bit later on? Because I want to get into some of the nightmare creatures themselves that come from our nightmares, and things like Slender Man or the Faceless, that we can go back to their starting point. We know where it is, or where we thought it was, but it's become something unto itself now. And we'll kind of cover into that. But as we're kind of wrapping up with the nighttime beings and ones that we've looked at fondly, the last one I'll kind of mention to you here that had a different, darker beginning is the Sandman.
Right.
Right. A lot of us are familiar with the Mr. Sandman, bring me a dream. He comes into your room if you have trouble sleeping and sprinkles stardust in your eyes to help you go to sleep. And that's why when you wake up and your eyes are all crusty, the Sandman had been there that night and visited you to help you get into sleep. What the Sandman's real job was to control. And if children were screwing around and up-horsing around when the Sandman got there, much like the Tooth Fairy, if you're up-horsing around, she's not going to bring you your money. Well, with Sandman, if he caught you pretending to be asleep or wide awake, he would come up to you and blast you in the face with a handful of sand, tearing out your eyes. It was like a sandblast, literally. The idea would be then he would steal your eyes. So the Sandman's a much more chilling character, much more like the Metallica version.
Right. I was
Sandman.
just going
It
there.
was a darker entity. It was a creature who was meant to control and keep us in our place when it came to sleep. It's remarkable. We're not all completely nuts after hearing all of these kind of stories growing up and being brought up in a fear way, right?
and so we used to be okay with that. You know what I mean? Parents, grandparents. I'll tell you, one of the more frightening aspects of my childhood was going to my grandparents' house. I would always, with my brother Mike, we would sleep in my Uncle Bill's room. He's been a guest on this show, by the way. He's a helicopter pilot in the Army. He's just retired. My Uncle Bill was a pretty tough dude. And growing up, when he was like, I was 5, and let's say he was 15, right? So he would sleep somewhere else at my grandmother's house, and we would sleep there. And he would tell us, dudes, whatever you do, don't open up that little door, right? And so right next to his bed was a little 3-foot by 2-foot attic door, right? And man, I never opened it myself. I never looked at it. I never really knew what was in there. But by him, the boogeyman's in there. You guys need to be behaving. Just go to bed, get to sleep. And it was like rule by fear, right? And we were okay with that. It scared the crap out of me, but we went to sleep, and I never opened up the door. I was terrified of that door. I can still see it in my mind's eye today. Why is it? Why was it okay to rule by fear? If with really cool stories, imagine if some child went to school and the teacher went up and said, well, what's wrong? Well, my dad scared the crap out of me last night. Told me the story about this headless horseman and was going through the village and killing people. And, you would have child services at your house. It's not that kind of party today. Why is it that we were okay with it when we were kids? I certainly was.
Well, we weren't such an overly politically correct and oversensitized group of snowflakes at that point. And I don't mean it to sound disrespectful, Jim, and I grew up in that nature as well. And I think it's okay to have a healthy fear and respect of things. You speak about Halloween, right? Perfect time of year, egging houses, toilet papering the trees in the neighborhood. My dad would take me outside and he'd point to the houses that had been egged and toilet papered. And he would tell me, this happens to my house, I'm going to kick your ass.
Right.
And I'm like, why me? I wouldn't do it. And he goes, no, but that means you've been a jerk to somebody or you've done it to somebody and they're retaliating. That's not that kid's house. That's his parents' house. And they work hard. So if you're doing this to somebody else's house, they're going to retaliate on my house. So I can only guess that if we're going to get egged and we're going to get toilet papered, it's because you did something stupid. So you know what I didn't do? I didn't egg people's houses and I didn't toilet paper them because he brought me 2 points of perspective. One, that's not the home of the person that I would have wanted to irritate or agitate anyway. And more importantly, there was going to be hell to pay if it came back. That was his version of karma. He was showing me that, and there was this sense of fear that we had. And it's gone away now. We're so worried that, this is going to scar and this is, you know what? No, it's okay to show that there are repercussions for our actions. And that's what a lot of these cautionary tales were, Jimmy. It was just a way to tell people, don't go here, you can get hurt. But if you tell somebody that, the first thing they want to do is go do it, right? This is dangerous. Ooh, danger, that sounds exciting. But you suddenly put the big bad wolf into the mix, or you put a demon or a haunted house or that old house at the end of the street. We all had one, Jimmy, that was haunted and abandoned. And you don't want to go in there because they found bodies in that house. And there have been ghosts seen in the windows. And we all heard about that. And all it was a neighbor that went away every year for summer to a different state or winter for a different state. And they didn't want their house broken into. And neighbors would tell these stories to keep you from doing stupid things and breaking and entering or going in and partying at these houses. If they built this healthy fear with this culture of ghost stories, it would keep you in play. And you wouldn't wander off at camp into the woods because there was a haunted horseman that stalked the woods. I went to Y Camp every summer, and there was a ghost legend or creature legend in every one of these places that I went to. And it was, again, now as an adult, I can look back at it and go, oh, that was a really clever way to keep control of children that they were afraid could run around and do stupid things at night and end up getting hurt. Now, none of us strayed from the path because we didn't want to get eaten by the wolf.
What was the first story you told your daughters? Do you remember?
Oh, boy. Well, I've always been protective of this thing with the paranormal. I don't talk about it openly. I mean, if they come to me to question me about something, I'm always very open and forthcoming. They've asked me about experiences, and when I was a kid, did I ever have ghostly experiences? And I would tell them about visitations from my grandmother, and I would tell them things like that. I never really used the paranormal to frighten my kids, because I didn't, that's a stigma that's bad. We have enough things in the real world to be worried and frightened of. The paranormal is not one of them. So I've always tried to keep them pretty well protected from that. But we've had some weird experiences. I had a point where my son, I was living at my old house with my ex-wife, and I was living in the basement. She was upstairs, and we were coexisting for a while in this living setting. And she came downstairs and said, "You need to talk to your son." And I said, "What's wrong?" And he started to tell me how his little sister Pacey was running around the house. And I said, "Honey, Pacey's barely 1 year old. She can barely stand up, let alone walk or run. She can't run around. I go, Dad, I've seen her. I saw her shadow running around in my room. Okay, well, I'll tell you what. You go back up to bed. I'll let him sleep on the floor next to me down here. We'll be good to go. So she goes, no. Tell him the rest of the story. So my son, who looks a lot like Ronnie Howard when he was that little boy, he looked like Opie from the Andy Griffith Show.
Right.
Cute little redhead, big freckles, big eyes, and he's always got a smile. And he looks at me and he goes, well, there's the little boy on the top bunk in my room, Daddy.
What?
And at first I looked at him and I said, well, that's your brother Nathan, Linus. And he said, no, Daddy, Nathan is sleeping. This boy's sitting on the top stair and he's looking at me like this. And he slowly tilts his head down and gives you that Damien the Omen look when things are about to go horribly bad. And he always kind of looks down at you and under his brow. And all of a sudden Opie turns into this creepy horror movie kid. And my blood ran cold. So being a good father that I am, and knowing that my other son is now maybe up there in this room with some other being right next to him, I just looked at Linus and I said, here, you just nap with Daddy. We'll be okay down here. I lay down there kicking myself mentally for the next 10 to 15 minutes. And then finally I said, all right, Dad's going to go up and just check on Nathan. And I turned on all the lights and stomped my way up the stairs as loud as I could, making as much racket as I could. I don't know if I thought I was going to terrify the ghost with like Fred Sanford attitude, there better not be anything up in that room. I'll kick it in the air, and I'm yelling my whole way up the room. And I get up there and my son sits up all bleary eyed when the lights go on. And thankfully there was nothing in his room. But that my little guy was that perplexed by it, I reached out to John Zaffis and Adam Bly, a few of my friends that are demonologists. And I said, what about this? Now, if it was just a kid in the room, I'm not too worried about that. That is what it is. I'm sure children's spirits would be drawn to my kids. They're fun. They're entertaining. And I said, but the fact that this kid looked malevolent is what unnerves me. And they told me the protocol and we went through and I cleansed the room the best I could. And we didn't have any problems for a long time.
I want to be clear here. Did you say you waited 15 minutes?
Jimmy, I'm still a human being. I still have some fears. And the way, if you would have seen my kid, again, you just have to picture the cutest little redheaded, freckle-faced kid who's always got a smile on his face, suddenly knitting his brow, turning his face into this scowling gargoyle and tilting his head and then looking at you from underneath his brow. It freaked me out.
Isn't that reason enough as a dad to jump up and save the day?
You think so. You think so, Jimmy. But I'm going to say, until you're in the position, I did what I had to do, but I'd figured if he was up there that long, he was probably okay. I was also just trying to think, what am I going to do? Because I always joke around when I've had Bigfoot guests on our show and people that are out investigating claims of chupacabra and Bigfoot and ghosts. I go, what happens, Jimmy? What happens when you round that tree and it's standing there? What's the next move?
I don't know. I've often,
right. So,
yeah.
So that was my thought was, okay, so I'm going to go charging up there. And if there is really some kind of manifestation sitting next to my son,
right,
what am I going to do that doesn't end up with me soiling my pants in front of my family?
Wow.
So I just thought it through. I was sitting there running it through my head. I'm saying some prayers. I'm just trying to, it was so surreal.
So
and I made my way up there.
You chose soiling your pants over saving your son.
At that brief moment I did. I went up, like I said, I listened keenly because if I would have heard something, I would have gone tearing up. Now, there's been a couple of moments of redemption, but maybe this will give you a little bit more insight, Jimmy, on why I'm not so quick to jump.
Sure.
Okay. Do you remember on the paranormal TV shows, Paranormal State and Ghost Hunters, when they first broke, and even on Most Haunted, they kept running into these little Jawa-sized ghosts that seem to be cloaked, very small beings, right? Mm-hmm. And it was like this epidemic. Everybody was seeing these things. Well, when my wife and I were still together and sleeping in the same room, she slept on the side closest to the door. I slept on the side closest to the window. And I woke up one night to see this little figure launching from my side of the bed, around the bed, heading towards my wife's side of the bed.
Whoa.
And it's small. It had to have gotten in the room and all the way over by me without me noticing it. And I'm a pretty light sleeper. So obviously it's one of these little creepy Jawa ghosts. So I fling myself over. I fling myself over my wife. I reach down and I grab this thing by the throat and I cock my fist back and I hear, "Daddy?"
No. Oh,
My daughter
you're serious?
Come in the room. My daughter had come in the room.
That's a true story.
From my side of the bed. Oh, it's a true story. She'll tell you the same story. But I almost took off my daughter's head trying to protect my wife. So I'm not too quick to jump to the trigger now, Jim, because I've got lots of kids, and I got to be careful that what I'm about to do does not scar them permanently. My response was, "I was just giving you a hug, honey."
Right. The those original shows, that first run in the mid 2000s when they really started to kick off, I fell asleep on the couch to a marathon. Right. Whatever. It's a marathon of one of those shows, and the little Jawa, that's what they were, right? The Jawa ghosts are running around. I fall asleep. And this was the nightmare that I had. And I'm telling you, it was terrifying. And it was because of the little mini caped crusaders, right?
Right.
Running with my wife, Rita, through a neighborhood with these things chasing us, with the neighbors yelling and screaming. Everybody's terrified. People are dying, dropping. There's blood. And the only way we could get away from them was climb a tree. So my wife and I we're climbing, and these things are nipping at. It was terrifying. And we're up in the trees. Now, I'm sitting here, I'm telling this story now. As ridiculous as it sounds, I woke up in a cold sweat. I was terrified, and it was the only thing we could do. And they would climb, and they were climbing up in the trees, and we would have to escape the tree and run away with everybody else in the neighborhood. I'm talking about, people in the streets fighting over trees to get away from the little knee-high dudes. And it was terrifying, man. It was terrible. That show messed with me. I love a good nightmare. And the other thing that I like to do, we're going to head towards a break right here, is, which I mentioned earlier, if I'm in the middle of a really good scary dream and then I wake up in the middle of the night, bathroom break kind of thing, I go back to bed trying to pick up where I left off. Do you do the same thing with your dreams?
Only when it includes Kate Beckinsale. Otherwise, no. I want out of those bad dreams. I want out of them, and I want to be done with them. I never try to get back into the dark ones. It's only the fun ones that I want to visit again.
Really? No, I enjoy stringing the nightmare together. I really do. I've said this many, 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 many times.
You're all kinds of special, Jimmy.
I like the thing that I like about having a really good nightmare is like the game Silent Hill. Did you ever play that video game?
Sure.
Okay. The whole opposite, right? The parallel world aspect of your reality where you go in and you can't escape, and you can see other people, but they can't see you, and you're yelling, and everything is gray and too sepia toned, and that's where I like to go. I like that zone. I like that zone, that two-tone sepia, you can't escape nightmare, and I will definitely try to jump back into it feet first.
Well, you can have them. I'll just send them your way. When I'm in the middle of creepy ones and I shake it off, I'll just make sure that I telepathically send the rest of that dream right over to Jimmy Church's home.
Yep, I have no problems with it, man.
Excellent.
I invite it. All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to continue the Frightmare Creature Night with Darkness, Dave Schrader. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRARadio.com.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Hurricanes, earthquakes, wildfires. This year we've experienced more than our fair share. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and last month I decided to make sure my family does not have to worry about food should we get caught in a real emergency situation. Introducing Numana, a healthy, storable product that tastes so good that you'll want to eat it every day instead of just during those times of duress. All Numana products have a 25-year shelf life, are MSG and GMO-free, no preservatives, and are made in America. With the Numana pack in your home, you'll be able to sleep at night knowing that you've protected your family. Not only have I tasted and tested, I own it. Now you can too. Just click on the Numana banner on jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code Jimmy when you order. In addition to a discount, we'll send you an autographed Fade to Black t-shirt. Seriously, go Beckley Tappy.
Do you worry a lot? Whether you're a college student, busy professional, parent, or grandparent, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in 1 to 2 weeks. Call 1-800-758-8746 or calmandclever.com.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA. KGRARadio.com.
Hi, folks. CBD is the home run hitter for health right now. Why, you ask? Because of what it does for the body. Unfortunately, I can't tell you all about the benefit. You know, there's reasons. Do your due diligence and log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com. Ancient Life Oil uses organic ingredients and is blended in coconut oil for some of the best benefits. Legal in 50 states and non-psychoactive. Log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back to Fade to Black. Happy Hallows Eve. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Darkness, Dave Schrader. And you know what's funny? Dave, you've got a nickname, man. You know how hard people work for a nickname? Darkness, Dave Schrader's got a ring to it.
Doesn't it, though?
It does. It really, that's it. You're Darkness Dave.
I like it. I like it. Although it's hard when you have to get introduced to the fiance's father. And you are Darkness Dave.
Yeah, Darkness Dave.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
With a black tie, right? With a black tie.
Exactly.
Black-eyed children. Let's go there.
Could I mention one thing real quick, Jimmy?
Sure.
As we're talking scary things, listen, there's nothing scarier than something that's going on in our country right now, and that's our neighbors, our friends, our relatives that are dealing with real hunger issues. They're going to bed hungry. Their kids, their wives, their husbands. And we're working with Second Harvest Heartland. We do this every year for a program called Halloween for Hunger.
Right.
And we help raise money for Second Harvest Heartland. Every dollar we raise, literally $1 supplies 3 meals to a person in need. So right now our campaign is going. We're in our 5th or 6th year of doing this. And our goal this year is $15,000. Last year it was 5, got bumped up to 8. We shattered 8 and made it up to $13,008. This year we set our goal for $15,000 so we could help supply 45,000 meals to people in need here in the United States. The people that you know that are right down the street from you that might need help that you don't even know about. So we take this very seriously, very personally. And if you could help us with our Halloween for Hunger campaign, go to darknessradio.com and click on the Halloween for Hunger banner. If you can't find it, email me dave@darknessradio.com, and I'll send you the link. That's dave@darknessradio.com. But we could use your help. We've got a week left in our program for Halloween for Hunger. We're about $6,000 in. We have a long way to go and a short time to get there. So if you could help us out, we'd really appreciate that.
I'm putting up the link right now, and we'll get the Fadernauts on it. Nothing like our Fadernaut family, the absolute best. I've got it up, darknessradio.com. It's right there. Everybody retweet it and take care of business, and head over for Halloween for Hunger at Darkness Radio. And thank you for that, Dave. And I heard the announcement. We were listening to you on Coast over the weekend, Rita and I, and she turned to me and she goes, Church, how come? I said, okay, we'll start something like this. She goes, Dave's the best. He's out there doing it, Church. Why aren't you doing, So there you go. So thank you for reminding me of my wife reminding me that I need to do more. So there you go.
I'm all about helping, Jimmy. That's where it all comes from.
She's laughing right now. She knows. She knows that conversation we had in the car. Okay. Black-eyed children. One of the. I mean, it's just a scary thought, right? Putting something like that into children. But for you, there's a lot of incredible encounters out there with black-eyed children. Share a story with us.
Sure, I've got a bunch. Some of my favorites. One of them, and for listeners that are not familiar, they're living in a cave somewhere, and this is their first show. Black-eyed kids is this very strange phenomena that has appeared. It's little kids, usually in groups of anywhere from 1 to 3 or 4. And they could be anywhere in age from around 5 years old up to around 14 years old, usually dressed very casual, nondescript clothing. It's not like they're out there in Adidas hats and sweatshirts and Birkenstocks. They're always very plainly dressed, and they have an objective. There's usually one spokesman in the group, and they'll begin by knocking on the door and telling you, we're lost. We need to call our mom. Can you please let us in? Won't you let us in? Well, where's your mom from? Do you have a cell phone? No, please just let us in. We need to make a call. The other two kids don't talk. It's only after a few moments of engaging these children that the people will realize that these children have dark black eyes, completely jet black eyes. There's no white exposed at all. The entire sclera is black. And people have been encountering these. As a matter of fact, a reporter was one of the first people back in the 90s to actually come out and talk about his encounter with these beings. He was outside of a store and a movie theater. They were approaching him, asking him for a ride home so they could get money to get back and see the movie. He was alerted to the fact it was pretty late at night already, and the last movie had already started, and it just felt off. And then he got this overwhelming fear feeling, and that's when he realized that they had jet black eyes. So we started talking about this phenomenon on our show. And listeners started responding terrified because some of them had experiences. And here are a couple of my favorites. One of them we call the honeymoon for horror. And the couple had gotten married. They had a nice beach wedding kind of thing that you see in the movies. The wife had always dreamed about that. He wanted to make it happen for him. So they had a nice little destination wedding. And as the sun begins to set, she says, let's take a walk down the beach. We'll watch the sunset. Husband and wife, sweet moment. They're going down. The sky is just absolutely beautiful. The sound of the waves crashing. They're all alone on this beautiful beach as they're making their way down, heading towards a pier that's busy all during the day with fishermen and vendors. But at night, it's empty. And as they're walking, their attention is suddenly drawn to this, what appears to be a little girl. And she's wearing what looks like a white nightgown or slip. And she's calling out, please, can you help me? Please come help me. And the two of them look at each other, and of course, being good people, they start moving closer to this little girl. And she's walking backwards, motioning for them to follow her. Please, come, hurry, you've got to help. So they're walking down the beach. They get down by the pier, and this girl begins to walk into the water, and she keeps beckoning for them. And they stop, and their spidey senses are just tingling. There's something just horrifically wrong. Now, first of all, is this a refugee boat? Are they going to find a bunch of bodies capsized and floating there in the water? That's one of the thoughts. Is there somebody waiting there to jump them and take their money? That's the next thought. And they pause and they say, well, you know what? We're going to go back to the resort. We're going to get somebody that can help you. And the little girl starts walking forward and she says, no, I need you. You must come now. And as she comes out of the water, she's closer to them than she's ever been. And they notice her face is very veiny. She's very pale and veiny with these giant black eyes. The husband grabs the wife's hand. They turn around and start hightailing it up the beach. Now, they said that they hadn't walked very long, but they realized just how far away from the resort they'd gotten on this private beach. And what really unnerved him was he looked down. They're following their footsteps back. There's no third set of footprints. There's no little girl's footprints in the sand. So they get all the way back down to the resort. They kind of report what's going on. They find one of the people and they're like, this is what's going on. They said, please don't go down in that area anymore. We can't be responsible for you that far down, and we're not going to send our security down that far.
What?
And they're like, well, wait a minute. So is this bad? Are there pirates or something down there? Are the thugs? We have to insist that if you go down there, you're on your own, but don't go down there anymore. So that was their encounter. They're like, holy hell, what kind of night was this? Just absolutely chilling. And they have this moment, and there's this black-eyed girl in the story. And we started to hear more and more of these tales. And I started to think, is this urban legend? Is this just something that's growing because people are sharing it and they want to become part of this history?
Right.
And one of our listeners is listening to the show, and she's at home, and her grandmother had come in. Here's these stories being told, and the grandmother's jaw just hits the floor. And she's Asian, and she tells her, I've got a story to tell you about this. She said, where I grew up in my village, she goes, we were very close. We would sleep in the same room on these mats. She said, and there were some children that had gone missing in our village. She said she woke up one night to see her brother, who was just a year or two older than her, standing in the doorway beckoning for her to come. And she goes, no, we're going to get in trouble. And he goes, come, let's go play. Let's go play.
Whoa.
So she thinks, well, he's the older brother. If I go play, if we get busted, he's going to be the one to get in trouble. So she kind of, again, begrudgingly decides, well, yeah, why not? Let's go. This is kind of fun and exciting. And as she gets up and starts to walk, she trips and looks down, and there's her brother sleeping. She looks back in the doorway, and there's this child, her brother's size, standing there, waving her on, jet black eyes, trying to get her to come out of the house. She turns around, hightails it back underneath her blankets. She's moaning and crying, trying to get some attention in the room, but afraid to cry out too loud. And then she could hear footsteps coming into the room, and something was crawling across the mat to get to her. And that's when she let out with a howl. The family woke up, turned on lights. Nobody else is there. They thought she was just having a nightmare. She swears by the fact this was not a dream. She was awake. Her brother was beckoning her to leave. She's sure that had she followed that black-eyed kid out of that home and gone with him, she would have disappeared like the other children in the village.
Whoa. And this is factual based.
Right. This is something that all of a sudden you're hearing these stories coming from around the world. And again, all right, this is fascinating. That's an old one. That's from like the 50s.
Right.
So suddenly we're starting to get these old ones. And then I'm left still scratching my head, and I'm like, all right, well, this is weird, but I don't know. And then I got to tell you, the two stories I got that were off air, they asked me not to mention their names, where they were stationed, but they both were two totally different guys in the military. They did not know one another, but their stories were eerily the same. Both guys had been injured over in Iraq, and that's as much as I can say about where they were. But they were both injured at different times, and both of them had encountered black-eyed children that had beckoned them and tried to get them, and they had followed to see what was going on. And again, you have to be very careful out there because they would strap children with bombs in a lot of places and blow you up. So they were trying to talk to the children and see what was going on, but they had seen these black-eyed kids that would appear before traumatic things, much like a Mothman episode that would happen. There would be an explosion and they would be hurt and other people, but the kids would vanish. So when you start hearing this from military personnel, and then it started coming in from all over in military personnel, people chatting with me and telling me, unfortunately, a lot of them, like I said, did not want to go on the record, didn't want to give names, but I knew some of them personally. I've heard the story. So it gets to be very chilling when you start to hear what's going on and how many people are being affected by this. And here in Minnesota, we've got all of these 10,000 lakes that people love to go run around. One of our listeners tells me, Dave, I got to tell you a story. She goes, I get up every morning at 5 o'clock. I go out and I run. I get a good 45 minutes, hour-long run in. She goes, I'm about a half an hour into my run, and I run past this park bench, and there are 3. She goes, they look like they're maybe between 10 and 14 years old, boys that are kind of huddled around this bench. And I'm running, and I've got my earbuds in, and I'm listening to some music. And all of a sudden, it just kind of hit me. Boy, is it early out? What are these kids doing out at this time of morning? So she stops, and she turns, and 2 of them are standing about 3 feet away from her, just standing there. And she pops her earbuds out, and she goes, is everything okay, boys?
Right.
And they go, yeah, we just want to play with you. And she said, pardon me? We just want to play with you. And that's when her heart stopped, because she realized there were only 2 boys there. Where was the 3rd boy? She spins around, and standing right behind her is the 3rd boy. And he just has this huge, creepy grin on his face. Then she noticed his eyes, jet black, completely black. She turns and starts running, not in the opposite direction. She takes like about a 45-degree turn and just starts running. Gets out of there. She said, I will never run in that area again. I don't know what I encountered, but the overwhelming, crushing fear was unbelievable. And these were kids. Dave, I'm in good shape. I take care of myself. I know if it came down to it, I could have beat these kids up if I had to. But there was something terrifying about them. And then when I noticed the one kid with the black eyes, I needed out. I wanted out. And that's exactly what she ended up doing.
It's a frightening story, right? And
right.
Is all of those were, and I want to get to Malaysia next. Very, very scary stuff going on in Malaysia.
Well, if we're going to do that, then let me give you my final black-eyed kid encounter story.
Okay, well, this is my point, and I do want to hear it next. Is this what I was talking about earlier? Where are we, creating this reality? Are we manifesting this? Is this the hive mind that is creating a very real phenomena?
It does start to make you pause to question that, because, again, so many people, your listeners, my listeners of coast to coast, have heard these black-eyed kid stories now.
Right.
And you get this hive collective, you get this mindset. And I got to be honest with you, I'm a little unnerved when I'm out by myself walking the dog and it's late out and I'll see a couple of kids start to approach me.
Yeah, right.
Because I think, A, have I brought this on myself?
Right.
What am I going to do?
Right.
And my dog's useless, so he's not going to protect me at all.
Yeah.
How do you respond to this? But thankfully, to this date, I've never had a black-eyed kid encounter. And I do get a kick out of the fact, that you get the skeptics out there, Jimmy. And there's sclera contacts you can wear. Well, first of all, most of the jet black sclera contacts that black out your eye,
right,
they're harder than hell to get in.
Right.
Second of all, those are usually in the neighborhood of about $200 to $300 for a pair of the sclera eye contacts.
Right.
So I don't know many parents that are going to do that, or kids that can afford to do that.
8-year-old kids. Right.
And then who's going to send their kids out at that time of night to play a joke on somebody?
I would. But see, this is the thing.
Even in this conceal and carry environment?
Yeah. This is the thing. After tonight's show, I feel sorry, a little kid out there yelling for help just ain't going to get it, man. It ain't going to happen. Okay.
Well,
okay.
Then you'll love this story and the response we got from it. Our final story that I'll share with your listeners tonight is one of my favorites. And it took place in Minnesota. About 4 or 5 years ago, we had this lag where it was just about raining every day for about 4 weeks. Rain, gloomy, crappy weather. And we have a set of listeners who love to listen to our show when they go to bed. Their nightly ritual was watch the news till 10, turn off the news, go to bed, turn on the radio, and kind of listen to us as they fall asleep. And great couple, they said one night they flip off the TV and they can hear what sounds like kids laughing and playing outside. And the husband said to her, what are kids doing out at 10 o'clock at night? And she said, honey, it's been raining nonstop. We used to play in puddles when we were a kid. We'd go outside and play. It's not a big deal. The parents probably just need a break, and they probably sent their kids out because there's no thunder right now. It's just light rain.
I can go with that.
Yeah, he goes, all right, that's fine. So they go to bed. About 3 o'clock in the morning, she wakes up, and standing next to the bed are 3 children, 2 little boys, and in the middle is a little girl with braids. And her breath catches. And she says, now, Dave, I'm a good listener. I've heard you talk about the hypnagogic and hypnopompic states. Those are the moments going in and out of sleep when reality and dreams can sometimes meld together. Where Jimmy and Dave are talking at a cafe in Paris in a dream, and I get startled because my cat knocks something over and I start to wake up, and then Jimmy slowly morphs into a black figure in my room, and then my Hollywood horror movie mind kicks in, and that figure runs up the wall and the ceiling and vanishes. And it's usually a quick 10 to 15 seconds because then your brain catches up.
Right.
And that's how these beings suddenly vanish. So she said, I'm aware of the hypnagogic, hypnopompic state. I close my eyes. I take a couple of deep cleansing breaths because I know, but now when I open my eyes, they're going to be gone. She goes, and I'm just thinking of how silly this was and how unnerved I was. And I was trying to remember what dream I was having that I had kids in the dream. I open my eyes and they're still standing there. So she opens her mouth to scream and starts to reach over to her husband to shake him. And the little girl steps forward and places her finger to her lips and just says, "Shh, we just want to look at you."
Oh, man.
She howls. The husband jumps up, turns on the light. Kids are gone. She tells him what she's just seen. They go room to room, turning every light on in the house, absolutely terrified by what they just witnessed. They can't find anything. They go in, leave all the lights on in the house. They're cuddled up in bed for the rest of the night until morning starts to break through the windows. They finally feel a sense of relief that they can relax and go to sleep. And that's when they could hear the sound of the kids outside playing again. And that was this final story that we shared one night on our show. And it was about 11:45 at night when we started to tell that story. And you know that it's great and you have some really interesting topics when you have the police approach you. And we had a cop in Minnesota contact me, and he goes, "Listen, I got to tell you something. My partner and I and a lot of the cops in the state of Minnesota love to listen to your show. We don't buy it at all. We think the paranormal is a bunch of nonsense, but it's great radio. It's old theater of the mind style radio, and we love it. And we love the scares. We love the stories, and it does make us question things from time to time." And he goes, "But you got done the other night telling the story about the 3 little kids." And he goes, "Radio goes off. My partner and I are laughing about it, talking, when suddenly over our radio, a call comes in. There's an old woman replying or calling in to say she has 3 children standing in her yard. She doesn't know who they are and they won't go away."
No.
He said, "I looked at my partner looked at me. We leaned forward, turned off our radio and said, 'Oh, screw that.'" So you thought I was bad for not wanting to go up when I hear there's some demon child in my son's room. The cops who are hired to protect and serve us refuse to take the call. Because there's a chance they might have run into the black-eyed kids. So I'm not as bad as I seem now as I was earlier. Right, Jim?
I mean, can you blame them?
No.
No. They're still human, you know.
Oh, yeah. And that was great. And I just love that was their response. And they reached out to me in all honesty to say, "I got to tell you, you got me. That was a great story. That was a freaky aspect of this to get into." And that opened up a lot of doors. A lot of people started sharing their stories. And I've heard tons of other black-eyed kid stories. Most of them are very short. Those are among my favorites that I shared with you tonight that they're creepy, they're impactful, they're just weird. But that begets our next creature. And we talked a little bit earlier about nightmares, and we talked about the Nightmare on Elm Street movie. And I think what's fascinating about that, and people don't realize it, we said, why do we love horror movies? Why do we love these scares? And a lot of it is because, like with zombies, they're the perfect killing machine because they're our neighbors. They're our friends and relatives. They're somebody we care about, and they're right next door, and they could turn at any second, and it's scary as hell. Well, there were 2 things that inspired Wes Craven for his Nightmare on Elm Street. First off was the assassination of JFK. He just remembers that headline in the newspaper because they were on Elm Street when JFK was assassinated, and it said Nightmare on Elm Street. And that stuck with him. But that was only the beginning of the story. He also heard, and this started taking place in the 70s, late 1970s through the mid-1980s. There was, I think it was a little over 100 men that died in their sleep. And until their final moments, they were quiet in bed. They were young. They were healthy. Their families were all stunned by what was going on. And investigators, they were completely blown away. And with all the victims being Asian, the medical authorities actually named it Asian Death Syndrome. And witnesses and families called it the Night Terror. And those first cases were coming from California's Orange County back in, I think it was 75, 76, 77, somewhere in there. So by the summer of 1981, 20 people had already fallen victim to this night terror, and authorities and medical responders completely powerless. What do? These people just go to sleep healthy and fine, and then they never wake up. So you've got this kind of exotic terror that caught the media's attention at the time, and the Los Angeles Times was running this string of stories on this medical mystery. And in 1981, the New York Times and newspapers in the East Coast, they started just devoting columns that were deep into these sudden sleep deaths. And Wes Craven, who was a filmmaker, and he had just a few very kind of low-budget movies at that time that he'd been working on, he read these stories, and that was what spurred on the story of Freddy Krueger and this killer that attacks you in your dreams. And remember the old legend and lore you probably heard when you were a kid: if you die in your sleep, you die in your life.
Yeah, I'm reading now a whole series of articles from the early 80s about this. I had no idea. Throughout Southern California, the United States, Philippines, Japan, young Asian males, night terror, sudden unexplained nocturnal deaths. Oh, man.
How terrifying that it's rooted in reality.
So
and to tie that in.
Wait a minute. Yes. Stop the car, man. You're telling me that the scariest movie that I can remember that Craven based it on reality, and no, I don't need this, man. I don't need this.
It's never been solved, Jimmy. We still don't know what killed those men.
I did not know about this. Yeah, right.
Sweet dreams, fate or not.
Yes, right. That's absolutely incredible. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah. Well, I know you're up against the break again here, but
we got about a minute. We got 90 seconds. Go ahead.
Let me tease you with this when we come back. I got listeners that started to share stories, and I got another email. It was one of those perfect emails that was, Dave, I'm a listener. I love the shows. Not a believer in the supernatural. Never had a paranormal experience in my life. I think it's funny to listen to these stories. I think it's outrageous. These black-eyed kid stories are awesome. They're terrifying, but anybody that believes them are complete boneheads. But with that said, when I was a kid, I had one of the most terrifying experiences, and I'd like you to see if you can tell me if you've ever heard of this or if any of your listeners had. And he unfolds this story, and I'll tell you about it when we come back after the break. That is one of the more chilling and freaky stories, and you wonder if this might have been also an inspiration for the character of Freddy Krueger. We call him Rawhead, the Bloody Bones Man.
Rawhead, the Bloody Bonesman. Okay, yeah. With that, oh no. All right, let's take a break right here. It is our Frightmare Creatures Night with Darkness Dave. Darkness Dave Schrader, Darkness Radio. Oh, man. I'm right there. I didn't need that Wes Craven story. We're going to continue this, the origins of Freddy Krueger, right after this short break. Stay with us.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRARadio.com.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Hurricanes, earthquakes, wildfires. This year we've experienced more than our fair share. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and last month I decided to make sure my family does not have to worry about food should we get caught in a real emergency situation. Introducing Numana, a healthy, storable product that tastes so good that you'll want to eat it every day instead of just during those times of duress. All Numana products have a 25-year shelf life, are MSG and GMO-free, no preservatives, and are made in America. With the Numana pack in your home, you'll be able to sleep at night knowing that you've protected your family. Not only have I tasted and tested, I own it. Now you can too. Just click on the Numana banner on jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code Jimmy when you order. In addition to a discount, we'll send you an autographed Fade to Black t-shirt. Seriously, go Beckley Tappy.
Do you worry a lot? Whether you're a college student, busy professional, parent, or grandparent, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in 1 to 2 weeks. Call 1-800-758-8746 or calmandclever.com.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA. KGRARadio.com.
Hi, folks. CBD is the home run hitter for health right now. Why, you ask? Because of what it does for the body. Unfortunately, I can't tell you all about the benefit. You know, there's reasons. Do your due diligence and log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com. Ancient Life Oil uses organic ingredients and is blended in coconut oil for some of the best benefits. Legal in 50 states and non-psychoactive. Log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back. Fade to Black. Happy Hallows Eve, everybody. Tomorrow night's Halloween. We've got the most in-demand personality in the country on the show with us tonight. Darkness, Dave Schrader. And, you are booked. Halloween, that's your time, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. This is my time to shine, man. I love this time of year. First of all, the weather. I love it nice and cool. I like it kind of dark and early. I like it creepy. I just have a great time. And then to do this and kind of get a chance to talk about all the frightening aspects of what people are intrigued by, I just love it. And we always open up, and I encourage your listeners as well, Jimmy, to not only check out our show, but send me your stories. If you've had weird paranormal encounters with black-eyed kids or ghosts, the demonic realm, angels, you can email me, dave@darknessradio.com. We read those stories and share them on Mondays. And then we pick some of our favorite stories, and we do something on Friday called Theater of the Mind, where we take these stories and I'll read them, and Tim will put music and sound effects behind them, and we feature one story every Friday with that. So please email me your paranormal encounters to dave@darknessradio.com, and you can keep up with our show at darknessradio.com and find ways to listen to Beyond the Darkness.
I'm taking notes. We have 2 new show nights now. We're going to do Haunted Mondays.
Perfect.
Oh, man.
Perfect.
You know, great artists steal, right?
Well, that's what I've been told. I mean, we're just following the footsteps of what Art Bell began all those years ago anyway, right?
Yeah,
so it's
no doubt. And he got it from, Billy Goodman, right?
That's right.
Out of
George
Vegas.
Norrie has continued on the proud tradition of cool stories and fringe news and conspiracy and paranormal. So it's cool that he sees the importance of bringing people like you and myself and Connie and Richard Sirrett and George Knapp together and share all of these different insights and aspects from different personalities. And George and Lisa and Tom, of course, are great at allowing us to shine and bring those moments with us.
You know what I really enjoy, and then we got to move on to this Freddy Krueger thing. I mean, that's freaking me out. But this is you touch upon something that I don't think most of the audience can appreciate or understand. and that is Coast to Coast is a family, but they really do allow us, the guest hosts, to do our own thing. That's it.
Yeah.
That's why we are there. There is no restrictions. I have never been, I'm sure it's the same for you as it is for everybody. I've never been told who to book, who not to book, can't do this, you got to do this, you have to say this, you've got to do that. I show up at the Coast Studios. You've been there, you know what's up with that. I show up and I do the show and I leave. I'm by myself and I can't. It doesn't. If somebody interrupted that flow, your creativity's gone, right? And so It is absolute creative freedom to do what we do best. And you're absolutely right. It's so cool. That aspect of Coast is what I enjoy the most. I don't trip. There's no pressure. I don't trip. There's nothing to trip on. People think it's some run government organization over there where we are robots and told what to do. It is the exact opposite. We have too much freedom. Maybe that's the problem, right? Okay, so all right. Now, that is a pretty bone-chilling thought that Nightmare on Elm Street is based on reality and based on fact, and Craven got a hold of that story. Do you remember? I don't want to segue too far off of this. The movie that came out about voodoo and zombies and
the Serpent and the Rainbow.
Serpent and the Rainbow, right? So I go and I see that, terrifies me, right? I'm 15, 14 years old. I see it in the theater. And we're walking out. My best friend, Eric, turns to me and he goes, man, that's based on a true story. I was like, what? Right? No, it's not. And then I find out that, of course, that it's true and zombies are real and that's what's going on down there in the Caribbean. And it messed with me. I mean, seriously messed with my head, just like right now with the Nightmare on Elm Street. Okay, so what was the guy's name?
All right, so here's what happened. We did the Black Eyed Kid stories. We get an email from a listener who says, I don't believe in the paranormal. I think this is all silly, but it's a fun show. But with that said, I had an experience I'd like your input on. And he tells this story. He was young, and I think he said he was like around 7 or 8 years old. He was sleeping in bed, and he rolls over, and there laying in bed next to him is this man, and its back is to him. And he's devoid of like skin. It's just like those models you see. It's this skinless man, just bloody red, muscle ligatures, and you could just see it breathing, laying there. As he's laying there behind it, and he's absolutely terrified. He can't see its face, but he just knows this thing is smiling. And he finally gets the courage up, rolls off the bed, and runs to his parents' room. And he's gotten in trouble before for waking up his parents and bothering them. So he's sitting there debating, do I go in and wake him up? I don't know what to do. I'm afraid. Maybe it was a bad dream. Maybe I just imagined that. And he slowly starts to make his way back down the hall, and he hears his bed creak and something hits the floor, boom, and starts to roll across the floor. He turns tail, runs back in, and gets in bed with his parents. He said, now, I've never had an experience like that, Dave, ever since. I've never had anything like that before. But has anybody else heard of this? So we threw it out to our audience. And then we started getting the letters. And one of the first letters we got, and we just featured this on a Theater of the Mind a couple weeks ago. There was, boys, and I have this weird theory about bunk beds. A lot of paranormal stories in children's lives surround bunk beds. So I think that might be some kind of weird portal that IKEA has not told us about. But his little brother slept on the bottom bunk. He slept on the top bunk. And he would, on nights when his little brother would be afraid, he'd feel his brother climb up there. If he wasn't feeling good or he was afraid, he'd climb up and they would sleep together. And that was just, their family was very close that way. He's sleeping, he's faced the wall, and then he starts to feel the bed rock and something's climbing up the ladder. Gets up, feels the blankets lift and flop, so he figures it's his little brother, and he rolls over to face his little brother to find out what's wrong, and there is this man in his bed facing him. This huge smile on his face. Skinned, looks like he's been skinned. So it's just this blood red face and shoulders. And there's no clothing has been mentioned on this character because they can see the shoulders, the back, the chest. And he's just facing this thing. And it doesn't speak. It just lays there and stares at him. And his heart is racing, but he's completely frozen in terror. Doesn't know what to do. And ends up laying there for hours, face to face with this thing, unable to do anything to better his situation. And it wasn't until the morning light started to come through the window that he finally just said, that's it, and closed his eyes and rolled away from it. And he felt the blankets drop behind him. And then he heard the closet door shut.
Wow.
And gone.
Whoa.
All right. Well, I start hearing stories like this, Jimmy, and we're getting freakier and freakier as they're going along, people sharing these creepy stories. Yeah, go ahead. You have a question?
No, I'm just going, whoa,
okay.
Whoa.
One of the
I'm picturing I'm picturing the whole thing. And not only that, this is all of us. I don't think there's any kids. Well, of course, but we all had bunk beds, or we had friends that had bunk beds.
Right.
So it's very easy to paint this picture. It
is, and you can see it. And then it was years later he finally broke down and told his brother what he saw. And his brother said, well, did you ever wonder why I always insisted on you closing the closet door?
Oh, man.
And he said, no, why? And he goes, because I would see it standing in the closet. And he would just see the side of the face that was outside of the door. The other side would be covered by the door itself. But this being would just stand in the closet door and stare at them.
Whoa.
And the little brother used to see it all the time. That's why he would climb up into the top bunk. So all of a sudden he's got this, not only his story, but years later he tells his brother, and his brother says, I never wanted to say anybody because I thought you'd think I was crazy.
Oh,
but they both had this experience. I even had a more humorous but still equally terrifying version of it. A guy and his girlfriend come back. It's late night. They've had some wine. They're cuddling on the couch, and things progress as things do when you've been having a good night out, and they are in the throes of passion. And at one point he dips his head down, lowers his shoulder, and she gets a clear view over his shoulder, and standing at the end of the couch is this blood red man standing there staring at her. And she lets out with a scream. Well, he thought he was doing something pretty cool, but had no clue what was going on behind him.
Right.
Is that this being was standing there. She starts screaming and hitting him. He turns around. There's nothing there. He gets off of her. She looks, and there's nobody in the room. But she swears she saw this blood red skinned man standing there at the end of the couch watching them. So this is one of those cases again where it's just, that's weird. It's eerie. It's freaky. So I start doing some Googling, and I start doing some research and looking for, is there any historic principle or story that this could tie to? And this is where it gets weird, Jimmy, because again, these people don't know these histories. These people are telling me stories that happened to them in the 80s, 90s, 2000s. But as I'm digging through, I start uncovering stories from over in England. And there's this thing they call the Bloody Bones Man. You told the story earlier about, was it your cousin that would sleep in the bed and he would say, do not go in this little doorway?
It was my Uncle Bill.
Your Uncle Bill. That's what it was. Your Uncle Bill. Listen to this. This is part of the folklore from England. The Bloody Bones Man. It lives in a dark closet, usually under the stairs. If you were heroic enough to peep through a crack, you would get a glimpse of this dreadful, crouching creature with blood running down his face and body, seated, waiting on a pile of raw bones that had belonged to children who told lies or spoke bad words. So now there's a historic precedent for this blood red creature. And this all is kind of cool because we can tie it back in and then launch into a whole new being. We can tie this back in again. Here you've got this Freddy Krueger-like skinned creature. There's no mention of Wes Craven, and unfortunately we lost him now, so we can't ever follow up with him on this. But he gained a lot of these thoughts from things that were part of real history and culture. And I often wonder if he was aware of Rawhead, the Bloody Bones Man, and if that's what he based Freddy Krueger on, this nightmarish creature that was skinned or burned and just looked horrific. And it takes on its own life. One of the most fascinating movies in the Nightmare on Elm Street run to me was the final one, Wes Craven's Final Nightmare, I think, or New Nightmare.
Right.
It was the very last movie that he did. And the concept I thought was awesome. It's years after the original series has ended, and this demonic thing is haunting the original cast members of the Nightmare on Elm Street movie. So it's a movie within a movie. And Heather Langenkamp, who was in the original movie, Nancy, she starts connecting with all of the other actors and stars of the movie. And even Wes Craven himself, she goes there, and he's been typing this story as it's unfolding in her real life. So it's this great kind of what came first. Is it the concept? And the whole idea was that this construct of Freddy Krueger attracted an ancient demon. And it liked the power and the fear that the character Freddy Krueger supplied and how people were terrified by it. So it became one with this fictional character of Freddy Krueger. It took ownership of that imagination. And when people stopped paying attention to it and stopped going to the movies, it became angry. So it started fighting its way back out, going after the people who brought it attention to begin with. So I thought, well, that's just a great twist. What a cool story. So if you haven't seen it, check it out. It's one of the best in the lot. Freddy Krueger is not this fun, quipping, dark guy. It's a much creepier movie, much like the very first Nightmare on Elm Street movie. So if you ever see the original and the very final one, and you get really kind of a great bookend of really good psychological, creepy movie, and they feel like a direct sequel to one another.
What?
So
yeah, go ahead. I
was going to say, with that said, then it launches us into a new phenomenon that started a few years ago. And you had asked me at the beginning of the show while we were off air, you said, yeah, let's talk about Slender Man. And this is a really cool article of history as well that we can start to chat about with the Slender Man. Now, I don't want to interrupt you. This is your show, but did you have something you wanted to add or a different direction you wanted me to go in?
My point is, Wes Craven, Lynch is really good at this too as well, is able to get the imagination, the brain, the dream sequence, the things that scare us the most, right, and turn it into film with the story that we relate to so much that it ends up scaring the crap out of us. The fact that it's based on reality. Lynch, those were his dreams. Those are his dreams.
Right.
And he's able to do that and capture it. And that's why it's done so well. Craven, again, based on reality. Okay, let's go back.
All right. So there's this really interesting part of history now that has come in the world of horror called Slender Man. And we know this is a recent creation. It was part of an internet phenom. It was this contest to create these paranormal creatures and make pretend Photoshop photos and everything. It was basically, how do you trick a paranormal investigator and then give this creature a backstory? So this guy created the Slender Man. And Slender Man is this tall, gangly creature that wears a suit, black tie, almost like the Men in Black, but he has no face. He's faceless. And in some instances, he has these spider-like legs that will fold out from his back. He's very tall and spindly, and he's often seen in the presence of children. So there's this great story. I mean, you're putting us right in the brain, the base brain of all of us. You're endangering children. You've got this creature that's faceless. You can't even imagine what it looks like. And the idea that it has no face is more terrifying than even like a Freddy Krueger face. It's just this blank, expressionless mound of clay. And it's dressed impeccably and very creepy. And it has actually become kind of this weird living thing, because a few years ago, I think it was now, going on almost 3 or 4 years, there were a couple of young girls in Wisconsin who were involved in an interest with these supernatural beings. And 2 of them got together and decided that they were going to sacrifice one of their good friends. They set this whole plan in motion. And the reason they were going to sacrifice her was to appease Slender Man. And that if they killed their friend in a brutal manner, he would open up his kingdom that was hidden in the forest near their home. And this is true. This is beyond fact or fiction. This is truth. You can go read about this. They're still dealing with the case now.
That's right.
These two little girls go for a walk with their friend, knock her down, and brutally stab her repeatedly. I mean, it's like like 16, 20 times, something like that. And then they leave her there to die. This little girl, by all miracles, survived, crawled out, got help, and was saved. The two little girls were quickly arrested, and the story was fleshed out, and you hear just the veracity of this attack and what went on, and that they were so cognizant of the fact that, well, we wanted to get into Slender Man's kingdom. We wanted to be accepted. So it's one thing to think there's one nut job out there that's broken, but when you have two or three that are kind of working in conjunction, it gets really chilling. That becomes even scarier than the paranormal stories. But yet that doesn't end there. There was very shortly after that a man that tried to kill his mother and burn the house down in order to gain favor with the Slender Man. And then you had other near murders occur in the name of Slender Man, all unassociated, all unfamiliar with the other ones that are taking place. And you start to wonder, what is this? How can a recent internet creature meme become so real to people? And Tim and I started digging into this for our show because we were fascinated by it. And you know what I found out, Jimmy? Much like the Freddy Krueger demon, it always existed. There are versions of Slender Man that show up in many different cultures and religions and date back centuries. But from time to time, they disappear from history. They're forgotten about. And then somebody has this bright idea and creates this being and puts it out on the internet. Now, the fastest way to share things from one side of the globe to the other, and awakens this global consciousness that you talked about at the beginning of the show.
That's right. I went and read, just like you and Tim did. I started jumping into folklore and peeling up some of these stories that go back in Europe, hundreds and hundreds of years of, the black dressed suit guy without a face, sometimes with a hat, right, a top hat, showing up in people's homes and houses, looking in the window, seen on the street, the same thing, bone thin, stick figure type thing without a face. And it goes back so far, not so much with the hive mind, because there's that part too, certainly with the internet and the power of the brain and the power of the mind to manifest these. But it makes you wonder if this isn't rooted in a reality of something that's been going on for a long time. Could it be interdimensional? Could it be a parallel world situation? I don't know, but the stories go back a long, long way. I wanted to touch upon, I want to stay on Slender Man. We have to stay on Slender Man.
Right. And I've got two other different varieties of them. One of the stories I know, two of them are from people that I personally know, and I'll share that with you in a few moments. But what did you want to bring up?
The video game Grand Theft Auto, right? Yes. Slender Man made its way into Grand Theft Auto. Did you know that?
Yes, Slender Man's made his way into a few different video games and programs because the programmers have been so fascinated by it and have done it. And then there's a game called Slender, which from a lot of people that I know that have played it said it gets very addictive and you get really freaked out playing this game. It's a handheld video game for your phone, and it totally freaks people out and unnerves them.
Can you get it for iOS?
You'd have to look it up. I'm not a gamer. It's been I think my ColecoVision was the last big game system I had. I had Pong and Atari 2600, leapt to ColecoVision, and then I was out of my price range.
Oh man, I can only see Twitter lighting up right now. Well, in Grand Theft Auto, I think it was San Andreas or one of the Grand Theft Auto 5 or whatever. You had to drive out to this cabin out in the woods and get out of your car, walk up to the cabin and go inside of it and hang out there for a couple of minutes. And then off out of one of the windows, you could see in the distance a little tiny slender man, this figure walking towards you. And from that point on in the game, you can't get rid of this guy. He's chasing you and following you no matter what. It is so creepy. And it's Slender Man. It is, and because it's computer generated, right, animation, it's exactly like the Slender Man memes. Can't get any creepier than that. All right.
And if your listeners go, they can Google Slender on YouTube. Go look up Slender Man Easter eggs in video games or TV shows. And it's about a 5.5-minute video. And it's already got over a 500,000 different hits. But Slender Man shows up in Plants vs. Zombies. I think he shows up in one of the what are those war games that are so popular? My mind is blank right now.
Medal of Honor.
Yeah, it's games like that.
Right.
He shows up in. But if you go look Slender Man Easter eggs in video games or TV shows, and I'll send you the link to it, Jimmy. I've got it. And if you want to post it on your site so that your followers can check that out, it's creepy, but it gives you an idea of just how deeply rooted these characters get and how they have become part of kind of a whole new subculture.
All right, let's get to. We have 3.5 minutes, so let's do the first story, then we'll do the second one on the back half of the break.
Sure. Now, the first time I'd heard of a character like this was long before it was given a name. And this came to us on one of my very first episodes 12 years ago. My ex-wife's friend, Megan, had contacted me to tell me that she and her husband were on a way to a party. And they were driving here in rural Minnesota. And they'd come to a T section in the road. And this car comes cruising very slowly through the intersection. And they're sitting at the stoplight waiting for this car to come through. And there's this driver, and he's got hands on the wheels, but as he gets in front of their car, he slowly turns to face them. And they said he looked at them and had absolutely no face. It was like just a stretched piece of skin going down over his face. And they both were absolutely terrified by what they just saw. The car cruises by. They're like, what was that? I don't know. There had to be a reflection or something. We had to be seeing that wrong. They go. Later that night, they're driving back. As they get to that T intersection, a truck comes barreling through the intersection and slams into them, damn near killing them. They were both really messed up and destroyed their car, but it was in that exact same intersection, going in the exact same direction that they'd seen this beast in earlier, and it struck their car. So was it a harbinger? Was it a warning, this creature and what they had seen? So that was the first iteration of this faceless, creepy creature that I'd heard of. And then I was told of another one that took place here in Minnesota. And that one, again, has a very weird feel to it and a very strange vibe, slightly off from the other, but none less chilling. So that's why I love these kind of stories, Jimmy, is the fact that there is all of this mind and imagination and creativity of our own world and our brains and this giant Akashic records that we all enter into. And it does start to wonder that if enough people hear about things or enough people start to have an experience, does it breathe life into something else? And I'll tell the other story when we come back from the break. And if I can remind people, help us out with our Halloween for Hunger campaign. We're helping Second Harvest Heartland raise money to help feed our friends, neighbors, relatives right here in the heartland of America. Every $1 we raise goes a long way. That's 3 meals. $1 equals 3 meals for a person in need. And we've got need more than ever now with horrific fires striking the United States and terrific weather patterns that have destroyed parts of it. We have to do some help for civic duty right here in our boundaries of the United States. And this is how you can do it. Go to darknessradio.com, click on the Halloween for Hunger banner, and that'll give you the access to make a donation and help us hit our $15,000 goal, which will supply 45,000 meals for people in need here in the United States. Again, that's darknessradio.com. Click on the Halloween for Hunger banner, or you can email me, dave@darknessradio.com, and I'll send you the link.
I want to thank everybody that did post up on Twitter that you made donations. Thank you for that. We're a family. We do this together. The links are up in Twitter. We'll do it again during the break. Our guest tonight, Darkness, Dave Schrader. More with Slender Man right after the break. Stay with us.
to my boy, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
So you went to dinner last night, you had your favorite pasta. Ugh. Or maybe you had a heavy, spicy meal and it left you. Ugh. GetTheT.com. Maybe you mowed down a huge steak and your plumbing is all plugged. Ugh. GetTheT.com. Our super strength tea will take care of your occasional. Ugh. It's all organic and non-GMO. Get rid of ugh. We have so many great supplements, but our super tea is number one. GetTheT.com. That's GetTheT.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roasted to the dark side of fade to black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Yes, Rivermoon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy.
Hey, can we talk about something serious for a minute? Your age. Getting old has its perks. But remember, being a few years younger, you know, your hair was thicker, you didn't have so many wrinkles, that extra weight wasn't haunting you, and you just felt better. Well, we can't turn back the clocks and go back 10 or 15 years, but you can start feeling and looking 10 or 15 years younger with Nature's Youth RSF. It's a doctor-formulated daily supplement that helps your body maintain its peak performance and fight the aging process. Imagine sleeping better, looking better, and feeling better. See how Nature's Youth RSF has helped thousands of people just like you at nature'syouth.com. nature'syouth.com. The holidays are coming. Imagine how it will feel when your family and friends are asking you what you did to look so good. Your secret will be Nature's Youth RSF. It's time to start looking better and feeling better. Learn more and order your Nature's Youth RSF at nature'syouth.com. That's nature'syouth.com.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way. KGRARadio.com.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
All right, welcome back to Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. It's our Hallows Eve special broadcast with Darkness Dave Schrader. Now, his new show, Beyond the Darkness, by the way, you can go to darknessradio.com, Beyond the Darkness, and go and check it out. I've been a guest over there, and it's really cool. You know what I really enjoy, Dave, before we continue with the scary stuff, is the reaction that I get from your audience and the Fadernauts when the two of us get together. It really makes people happy, man. It's really cool. I mean,
right, when you can bring two people you like to listen to together, and you know, I've had the same deal with, and I'm sure if you've talked to Jim Harold, people just, you know, they love the hosts of their shows, and when we can intermingle with one another, it's like watching DC characters hanging out with Marvel characters in the movies, right?
Yeah, I've never had Jim on the show. Yeah, we need to reach out
well,
to
you
Jim.
should. Jim's a good guy, and he predates most of our shows in the paranormal realm.
Sure.
And Jim's a great guest with a lot of cool stories.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Sometimes you're too close to the fire, right? And it just slips by you. But you're absolutely right. Jim Harold, man. I've got a request here. So before, I need you to dig deep into your book of scary stories. I've had a few requests for some angels, demons, and an exorcism. I know you got a good one. So we'll close the show with that. So think about that. Okay. Slenderman, you had one more Slenderman tale for us.
Yes, this other Slenderman story comes from Minnesota as well, and it was one of our listeners.
What
she
is
said
it?
She had
wait,
a very strange. Yeah,
Dave. What is it about Minnesota, man?
Well, our show's based here, so we have a very large contingent audience of people that are local that listen. So that's where we were getting a lot of our stories from to begin with.
It's like you don't want anybody.
The show grew.
It's like you don't want anybody to move there. Hey, honey, honey, we've got a really nice house in Vegas we need to go check out. We got, I was thinking about Chicago, but Minnesota's right out. No, Minnesota's off the list.
Faceless and demons and creepy stuff out here. Well, she had gone. This listener of ours, she had her morning routine. She'd get up, she'd go to the Caribou Coffee here in Minnesota, and she'd go into the shop, get her coffee, and then head to school or head to work. And she had pulled into Caribou like she did every morning and went inside to grab a coffee and stood in her line, got her coffee and her biscuit, and came walking out to the car. And she gets to the car. She sees this man standing there wearing a suit and a hat, and he's looking in the driver's side window of her car. And she's thinking, oh, boy, did I leave something on the seat? Is this guy trying to figure out how to break in? And she goes, pardon me, can I help you? And he just keeps looking into the window of the car. And she goes, excuse me, that's my car. Can I help you with something? And he turns to look at her, and he has no face. She said you could see where there were, a slit for a mouth. You could see this nose bump, but it was just like a sheet of skin over this face. And she was paralyzed. She started to back up slowly, walked back into Caribou, and just stood there. Now, she's there all the time, so they knew her. They recognized her. And one of the baristas said, is there something wrong? And she said, I'm not sure. I just saw something that I don't know. And then they're like, what's going on? She goes, there's a man by my car. And they're like, oh, and you don't know him? No, I don't. And she didn't want to tell him what she'd seen. She was so unnerved by it. So two of the baristas walk her out to her car, ready to confront this guy standing by her car, and there's nobody there to be found. So she thanks them. She gets in the car. They wait to make sure she pulls out of the lot and is gone. She takes off, and she's heading to work, and everything's fine. All of a sudden, she runs into this traffic jam, and she's sitting there forever. And finally, it starts to break up. She makes it, and she's going to be late to work now. She gets up and gets by one of the police officers, rolls down her window. She goes, what happened? And he says, there was an accident here that happened. And the time of the accident was about the time she would have been crossing through that intersection that day. And a truck had come barreling through, smashed into a couple vehicles, and killed the drivers. So had she not been detained for that brief few moments, had she left on time, she believes she would have been going right through that intersection at that point, and she might have been one of the people that ended up dead. So again, now we look at this from a different perspective. Is this a harbinger of doom? Is this something that was alerting her to a possibility, or was it keeping her? Was this an angel?
Or
now that's another aspect.
Or he caused that accident, and he just didn't want her in the accident. He knew, he was going to go and do. Maybe.
See, your villain is double-sided. He's chaotic neutral. He wants to take the lives, but just wants to spare hers.
It's kind of like the assassin that doesn't want the children involved in the family, right?
I got you.
He's there to take out the dad, and so maybe he had a target and didn't want somebody else involved.
Very well could be. That's a totally different aspect of this I hadn't heard before. But it lends into this very strange sense of what is it that we're dealing with here. You've heard all of these creepy stories, and that the Slender Man and what he is supposed to do, and people have seen this being. And they've caught what they believe are photographs of this being. And again, unfortunately, because of the advent of Photoshop and how easy it is to create amazing special effects from the nerdery of your mom's basement, we don't know what's real and what's not anymore.
Right.
It's all kind of open to interpretation, but it's fascinating nonetheless. So those are some of the characters I find to be the most chilling and freaky. You had mentioned the Malaysia story. There was, and we'll go with this, talking about kind of the demonic realm. It was something we called dangerous playmates, and they were the burning girls. And this took place, and I want to say now, Jimmy, boy, I think it's going on maybe about 8 or 9 years ago that this was in the news. These children were self-immolating them. So they were setting themselves on fire because they were being told that by their imaginary friends that they could go with them and they could have powers if they did this. And here's where it gets really weird. We know this is a fact. We know that there are unrelated children that were doing this, people that did not know each other from different parts of the country that were doing the same thing. The other terrifying aspect of this is that they would do it in a room adjacent to the parents' room, and the parents were completely oblivious. They wouldn't know until they walked in and found a smoldering rubble of what was once their child before they, there was no alarm system. There was no smell of smoke. It wasn't setting anything else on fire but the children. There were a few children, I think it was around 3 of the children that had survived, these little girls, who talked of their imaginary friends who would promise them great power and great abilities if they set themselves on fire, and they'd be able to become these fire fairies. Now it's really creepy because as I was trying to find that original story to talk about, and I couldn't because I can't remember what year it was. I'm almost 50 and I have 8 kids. I can't even remember my kids' names at this point. I looked up kids lighting themselves on fire, and I started coming across new articles, Jimmy, about these kids that this fire fairy deal that's going around. It's an internet deal that it was a 5-year-old girl, I believe, that I'm trying to see if I can pull it up again here quickly while we're doing this. But they're being told by this internet deal that if they want to become part of the fairy people and the fire fairy, a very powerful kind, they're being told to leave the gas on the ovens. Some are being told to put themselves into the fire and put their hands into the fire, and that they'll get the power of these fire fairies. So it just keeps cycling itself in different ways. These self-immolation issues of people doing this thing to themselves, trying to attain powers and some other kind of supernatural abilities.
I went through, and these stories are out there in newspapers, and you can find them on the net. But some of the spontaneous human combustion stories, and it started to, get a little bit out of control, the turn of the century through like 1940, 1950, with some pretty incredible photographs and stories from the authorities, bursting into these bedrooms and living rooms, finding somebody's body in a chair, nothing else burnt, right? Just the body. Right. In a bed, right? And some were thinking, well, somebody was smoking in bed or smoking while they were watching TV. Well, how come the chair didn't burn? The ceiling, the floor, the rest of the building.
That's where it gets creepy. But I think I may have stumbled upon one of the aspects of this. We did a show about 7 or 8 years ago talking about this phenomena, and something that had registered to me. When you ingest enough chemicals, anything's possible. And, there are chemicals that you can use for stripping wood and furniture and linseed oil. If it's on a rag, it can self-immolate. It can just all of a sudden start to smolder and burst into flames.
Right.
So it's just this kind of weird chemical reaction with the air. And look this up. If I'm lying, I'm dying here. Look it up, Jimmy, as we're talking. They have found in baby formula rocket fuel.
Right. Yes.
Rocket fuel. That means you're ingesting it. It's becoming part of your body. It's being absorbed by the fat cells. You're storing it. And we're being given this for years. And it's a it's not even like chemicals that are being dumped and they're being accidentally, it's this naturally occurring components that are part of rocket fuel. And you know how hot and fast rocket fuel burns.
Right.
So I'm wondering, with all of the chemicals and GMOs and things that we're doing to food and drinks, are we filling our bodies with these oils that just in the right circumstance, the right heat, the right chemical reaction, maybe the chemicals you put on your body that day, the perfume, there's just some chemical reaction that starts the fire. And that's where it goes.
Yeah, I had read, and excuse me, everybody, for getting this completely wrong, but it was something similar to this. If you smoke enough cigarettes, right, and just enough nicotine into your bloodstream, combined with things like alcohol and maybe some kind of exotic red meat, and then combine that with, something else that you're ingesting, and combine that with oxygen, and all of a sudden you have this cocktail in your blood, your body temperature raises, and you simply, the chemical reaction gets to the point where you simply explode. And I remember reading, there was a whole chemical list of the right things at the right time that you can actually do accidentally, right? And your body temperature raises and you explode. Crazy thought.
That's like, the original Batman movie with Michael Keaton. The Joker had chemically treated a bunch of different things, and if you just happen to use the right ones, it would kill you. Remember? I mean, that storyline. So that's been around for a long time, the theories and thoughts that if you just mix it in the right way and you've put it in the deodorants and perfumes and hair products, and once you've mixed all three chemicals together, you ignite. I mean, it doesn't seem so far-fetched that we may just be ingesting that which will kill us in what seems to be supernatural ways.
I'm doing that right now with some really good coffee. Just letting
coffee. Coffee's good for you.
Dave, where can everybody go and check out your show?
They can find us if they go to darknessradio.com. And if they're a Droid user, we have an app for Droid. They can just go to the Google Play Store, and whether it's on their computer or on a Droid app, just get the Darkness Radio app, and that gives you access to all of the different programs and things that we're associated with so that you can find us easier and make us a part of your world. And we talk about the strange and the supernatural 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. And it's usually a 60 to 90-minute podcast made available to you so that you can enjoy all the weird fringe world that we're surrounded with every day. And it's a good escape from the reality of what's going on in the world around us and a focus on a different aspect of reality.
Thank you so much, my friend. Just an absolutely amazing show. And I'm watching Twitter here. Man, you need to do this like once a month with Dave. You and Dave need to get together. Oh, by the way, I do need to do this. It popped up like 4 or 5 times in Twitter. Everybody wants to know, how is Tim and why isn't he joining us tonight?
Tim is getting better, but it's kind of a one step up, 2 steps back with his health issues. And Tim is a diabetic and has been dealing with Charcot-foot. And it continually plagues him and causes problems and infections. And we nearly lost him earlier this year.
Right.
Thankfully, that turned itself around, but he just was dealt a new blow. He'll most likely be in a walking boot for the rest of his life because of the irreversible damage to his foot. So if you can keep Tim in your thoughts and prayers, it's hard on his stamina as a man, and as I'm not saying in a sexual way, but I mean the stamina and dealing with these kind of setbacks constantly, and to the morale. So he needs the love and attention, and that's it. And I'm sure, Jimmy, he would love to be on your show. If you ever reach out to him, he'd be more than happy to join you and talk about conspiracies, because he loves that, electronic voice phenomena, right, aliens and ancient art. You want to talk about any kind of weird fringe stuff, Tim's your guy for that as well. But I'm always happy to come back and share more creepy stories with you.
Thank you so much, Dave, man. You're the absolute best, and you just make my job and my life on the air so much easier. Just thank you so much, my friend. I really appreciate it. It's my
pleasure, and for your listeners around the world, just do good and be good. That's all I can ask of you. And until next time, keep it dark.
Happy Halloween, Dave.
Happy Halloween.
Thank you so much. Darkness, Dave Schrader, everybody. And his links are over at jimmychurchradio.com. You can just click. It's Beyond the Darkness, Darkness Radio. And I was a guest on there. I have to say this. It was last month or, a little bit longer than that. But it was so much fun. Dave is so good at his craft, right? He is just so good. He makes it easy on me. I mean, he makes it look really, really easy. He's one of the best, and it's just a pleasure to have him on the show. Just so much fun. And I got to tell you, I'm not going to get my money back tonight out of Dave because he certainly scared the crap out of me a few times tonight, and I love everybody's reactions with all of that. Thank you so much, Dave. You're the very best. I did want to, I've got to go back. Something happened. Let me pull up my notes here. Something happened last week, and I posted up on Facebook. If you go over to my Facebook page, it's there. An object, I haven't had a chance to talk about this yet, but an object for the first time has entered our solar system from interstellar space. Now, it is called, and what is important here to realize is that everything that we have monitored, everything that we know about here is from here, right? Our own solar system. This object is called A2017U1, and it entered into our solar system. Now, I have an animation posted up over on my personal Facebook page, and you can go and check it out there, and somebody should pop it up in Twitter. But it came into our solar system and took, I'm saying a left-hand turn. You know, it depends on what view you are of the solar system. Could be right. But took a turn and is now splitting. The object, and this is what is crazy, they don't know what it is. They don't know if it's a UFO, if it's an alien spacecraft. They don't know if it's some space rock, a comet, an asteroid. They don't know. And they don't even know where it came from. Okay, it's traveling at 15.8 miles per second, and there you go. Now, and they've been trying to track this. Well, today, the first photographs were released of this object. Now they've got a measurement on it, and they're guessing that it's about 400 feet across. It's tiny. Dude, it's a spaceship, man, I'm telling you. And this is what is crazy. These images are stunning. And it is the first object that humans have ever seen from outside of our solar system. You need to understand what I'm saying. Comets are from here. Asteroids are in our gravity field. These aren't entering from outside of the solar system. They're not interstellar. Scientists from Queen's University Belfast are using their telescopes to study the object, which was identified through a telescope in Hawaii last week. Professor Alan Fitzsimmons described the discovery as sending a shiver down your spine, end quote. He said, and I'm quoting here, by Wednesday this week, today is Monday, by Wednesday this week, it became almost certain that it will become certain that this object is alien to our solar system. You got to check out the picture. There it is. Right there. What is it? Now, the trippy thing, when you look at the animation, this is what I want everybody to plug into their mind's eye. Let me jump back over to Twitter. Thank you, Dan. I'm going to retweet it right now. There you go. This isn't the animation. You got to see the animation. But thank you, Dan, for posting this. Anybody post the animation? Did it get posted? No. Okay. I'll get it up after the show tonight. You have to see it. But look at Dan. Look at Dan's. It entered in from somewhere and literally buzzed the sun, went through our solar system, took a turn, went past Earth at about 14 million miles out, and now is splitting, and we don't know where it's going. out of the vastness of the Milky Way, our galaxy. This thing came in, found our solar system, cruised through it, turned, and is now leaving. I just have to say, is it intelligent? It's too bizarre. What is going on? It looks, and you look at the animation of it, it looks too smart. It looks intentional. This is the vastness of space. It is so humongo and so huge. And to have this little guy, our little friend, visit us, cruise through our solar system, past our sun, past Earth, and then split in a perfect turn. It's bizarre. It didn't choose to stay. It didn't get grabbed by some gravity, pulled into an orbit, and is now staying. No, it came from outside, buzzed us, and is now splitting. I'm telling you, I so many times I mentioned on this show, and I'm going to drive this home right now so you can understand where I'm coming from. If we were out there doing this and we had the capability, we would do the exact same thing. Have some test equipment on board, some monitoring, you're photographing, you're taking images, you're making notes, and you're cruising by this, whatever they call our solar system, right? And they're splitting and broadcasting this information back home. Think about that. If we had 1,000 years from now, 1,000 years, not 100, 1,000 years, and we're out exploring the Milky Way and we're able to get to the stars, you know how we would do it? You know how we would get there? We would have robots replicating and building more drones, more satellites as we moved along, spitting them out around the galaxy, going out. You're going to go check out this star. You're going to go check out this star. You're going to go check out this star. By the tens of millions, we will have tens of millions of drones and satellites out exploring our Milky Way. That's what we would do. Could this be that? I'm just saying. It's an amazing, amazing story. One that, thank you, Dew Sky. There's the animation right there. I'm retweeting it. Look at the animation. Take that baby up big screen. Look at it. There's our solar system. Takes a turn, splits. It's 400 feet across. And we don't know. We don't know where it came from, what it's doing. We know nothing. And that, my friends, conclude another episode of Fade to Black. I got to thank the one and only Darkness Dave for coming in tonight. He is truly the most in-demand person when it comes to October and Halloween, but he is the best. Happy dreaming tonight, Fadernauts. Fade to Black's executive producer is Rita Kamarian. Show is produced by Hilton J. Paul, Mark T. Kovar, LJ3, Renee Jonas. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Bob. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vitoa, Mark D. Kovar, Fady by Dale, Webmaster Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy, spaceboymusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network, and syndication is KGRA, The Planet. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2017 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. Tomorrow night, right here, Sherlock Holmes and Jack the Ripper for our Halloween special. Come on by and hang out with us. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. You can follow Dave Schrader at Beyond the Darkness. It's right there on Twitter. Until tomorrow night, everybody be safe. Go Beckley Tappy.